Chapter 191, Crane Disaster. In the azure blue sky, numerous clouds were floating aimlessly. The elderly Gu master rode on top of the white crane. Under his white eyebrows that were sharp like daggers, his eyes revealed a deep killing intent. He, with this grudge of mine, I shall start taking revenge on your descendants, he laughed, staring down at the battlefield, stretching his thin and dry finger and pointing downwards. The white crane below him raised its long and elegant neck, crying out in a bright and loud voice. The voice spread through the skies, and from far away, there were many return calls. What sound is this? Fang Yuan was activating the earth communication ear grass at the time, thus he heard it first and was shocked in his heart. The crane cries went on endlessly, all at different pitches, giving off an impressive magnitude. This was not over 100 canes, nor a few thousand crying at once, it was the collective cries of over 10,000 flying cranes that could cause such an effect. Is there a migrating flock of cranes nearby? Out of nowhere, Fang Yuan felt a strong sense of danger. The crane cries attracted the attention of the Gu masters in the arena, turning their heads to look at them. What's that in the sky? From the sound, I'd say it's a large herd of migrating birds. Tell all the Gu masters not to attack recklessly and bring trouble upon themselves. My clan leader was just saying, but suddenly he came to a halt. His eyes dilated, seeing 1, 2, 3, almost 10,000 cranes in the sky, clumped together and attacking towards the arena. How can this be? Get your guard on, defend. Let's escape, there are 10,000 cranes here, there has to be a myriad beast king. The wolf tide is just over, now we have a crane disaster. Oh heavens, Qingmao Mountain is truly a place of disasters. Gu masters started commenting, expressing the shock in their hearts as their spirits wavered. After finally resisting the wolf tide, a crane disaster appears. The three clans on Qingmao Mountain have suffered great losses already, how could they have the excess energy to deal with such a large flock of cranes? The flying cranes folded back their wings, shooting down like a rain of arrows. Under the thunderous cries, screams of fear, pain and horror erupted at once, as all sorts of lights burst forth, moonblades, water balls and steel spikes were sent into the skies. After a momentary resistance, more than half of the Gu masters were killed. These flying cranes were like pile drivers, each time their wings flapped, it had the strength of a boar, and their claws were sharp and could break rocks. Ordinary cranes were hard enough to deal with, not to mention the large amounts of 100,000 beast kings among them. The clans had centuries of experience in dealing with the wolf tide, and also the sturdy villages that can defend against them. But here, it was the wilderness with no buildings in sight. Where could they find anything resembling a fort? Thus, during the first attack, half the Gu masters passed away. The cranes' long beaks penetrated hearts, their claws grabbing onto skulls. With a flap of their wings, people would vomit blood and be sent flying, all their bones broken. Fang Yuan was also attacked. His eyes could only see white fog as he relied on the earth communication ear grass to avoid their attacks. Fang Yuan, hang in there. This time, he heard Gu Bo shouting behind him. Fang Yuan felt puzzled. What's up with this Gu Bo? When he shouted Fang Yuan's name earlier, the tone was weird, like he had intentions to protect him. Now he even ran over to help. Fang Yuan was a scheming old fox, but even he could not predict everything. In this short period, how could he conjecture that Tai Ruanan assumed he was a 10 extreme physique? Gu Bo was a rank 4 expert, thus since the cranes attacking Fang Yuan were ordinary beasts, they were easily killed or repelled by him. Fang Yuan, is that you? Gu Bo came to the maze fog. Fang Yuan's thoughts whirled in his mind, right now, his predicament was extremely dangerous, and being near Gu Bo would greatly increase his chances of survival. Thus he answered, "It's me." Gu Yubo, hearing Fang Yuan's voice, finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Very good. Fang Yuan, let's not mention what happened in the past. No matter what, the clan will protect your safety. Let's return to the village, I'll protect you while retreating." What he did not know was that the village was the most dangerous location for Fang Yuan right now. But the crane disaster was a much greater threat compared to the village. At least if he went back to the village, he would not die immediately compared to staying under the crane's attacks. Fang Yuan sighed without hesitating, "Please lead the way, clan leader, I will try to keep up." But at this time, a giant crane descended from the sky. The white-brow old Gu master sat on top of the crane, his tone cold, "No one can escape, all of you shall die here." Fang Yuan could not see, but heard Gu Yubo beside him shout, "Rank 5 Gu master." Evidently, the Guyu clan leader had investigative methods that was able to deduce the stranger's cultivation level. Fang Yuan was stunned in his heart. Where is there another rank 5 Gu master here? This tiny Qingmao mountain, it was neither a famous location nor full of resources. Why are all the rank 5 experts gathering here? Don't tell me, this has to do with first gen Guyu. Fang Yuan hit an inspiration. His heart jumped. If it was an ordinary crane disaster, he would have no chances left. Wild flying beasts were hard to make use of, and although he was at rank 3 peak stage, compared to a rank 5 he was still weak and could not get out of the danger. But now another rank 5 Gu master showed up. Not only is he another source of extreme danger, but also a chance to break out of his predicament. This current Qingmao mountain, the 3 rank 5 experts were the crucial players, the rest were insignificant. Only a rank 5 can deal with rank 5. Immediately, Fang Yuan decided in his heart. It is time, he has to bet on this. Clan leader, the first gen ancestor has fully awakened, we will be safe if we return to the village. Fang Yuan said. What? Gu Yubo shouted in shock. His shock gave Fang Yuan reassurance. I won't lie about such things. As long as we get back to the village, we can save our lives, Fang Yuan continued. Gu Yubo was a resolute man, thus he brought Fang Yuan and sped towards the village. But the flying cranes continued to approach, blocking the path. 100 beast kings and 1,000 beast kings appeared non-stop. Gu Yubo fought with his life, protecting Fang Yuan. Eventually he could no longer proceed, falling into the encirclement of the flying cranes. Fang Yuan was protected by Gu Yubo, thus he was safe for the time being. Once time was up, the maze fog vanished. Fang Yuan observed the battlefield, only to see corpses lying everywhere, showing that a terrifying battle had happened. The Gu master's sacrifice was huge, but the flock of cranes were also greatly damaged. Other than broken limbs of humans, there were also crane corpses everywhere. Isn't this the iron-beak flying crane? Fang Yuan felt puzzled. Others might not recognize it, for after all, this flying beast was not from the southern border. But he knew that this iron-beak flying crane originated from the Middle Kingdom. Myriad Beast King, rank 5 expert. Next, Fang Yuan saw in mid-air, a giant crane was flapping its wings, floating. On its back, a white-haired old man was sitting with a cold expression. Fang Yuan looked away, back at Gu Yubo. This Guyu clan leader was already full of injuries, his body full of blood, fighting with his life. Many times he could clearly have avoided, but to protect Fang Yuan, he would rather suffer the injury himself. Clan leader. The current situation is not looking good. Gu masters are fighting bravely, but are all divided into different areas by the flying cranes, they will eventually get overwhelmed. We must gather their strength into one. Only then can we have a chance to break out of this and return to the village. Fang Yuan said to Gu Yubo. You are right. Gu Bo looked across the battlefield, shouting loudly, "Everyone, the enemy is before us, our Gu village has a method to deal with the enemy, quickly assemble with me and kill our way out." The voice echoed in the battlefield, attracting numerous gazes. What? Gu clan still has a trump card to deal with a rank 5? Believing in it is better than nothing. Brothers, let's go, gather with the Gu clan leader. They were already despairing, but now that Gu Bo said it, they saw some hope. Under the pressure of death, these former enemies united and worked together, quickly gathering into one spot. Gu clan, hee, you are all senior brothers' descendants. On the huge crane, the white-brow elderly laughed coldly, about to command the cranes to intercept, but on second thoughts, he stopped that idea. Why not let these people escape back, so I can finish them off together? But these are all his descendants, so in the battle later, I can use them to threaten him. But these 3 rank 4 Gu masters have the ability to interfere with the battle, I cannot let them stay, I shall kill them first. Thinking so, the white-brow elderly screeched strangely, flicking his finger and sending 3 balls of light flying. What Gu is this? Xiong clan leader was first hit by the white ball, and after getting covered by it, his speed fell drastically, slower than a snail. The other 2 clan leaders were the same. Fong Yuan, quickly go, Gu clansmen listen up, you have to protect Fong Yuan at all costs, he's the only one that knows the method. Gu Bo tried all ways but could not get rid of this light ring, thus he screamed loudly and turned around to face the white-brow elderly. Fong Yuan turned around, looking at this Gu clan leader deeply. Elder Fong Yuan, let us protect you. A large number of Gu clansmen gathered beside Fong Yuan, protecting him in all directions. Healing light as well as speed buffs were all casted on Fong Yuan. Collision sounds were heard from the back, and under the mystical and cruel fate, the 3 clan leaders who hated each other worked together tightly right now, battling against the mysterious elderly with their life on the line. The results of this battle was decided from the start. The 3 clan leaders died one by one as the white-brow elderly flicked his sleeves, sitting firmly on the huge crane. Flying cranes engulfed the skies as they gradually forced their way into Gu village. Gu village was in chaos, and the sad cries of people were heard everywhere. Large numbers of bamboo buildings fell, and the debris area was full of corpses with white cloths covering over them. Injured members cried in pain, lying on the ground as many healing Gu masters worked to the bone. The clan main pavilion was half devastated, and the village square was covered in a layer of blood water. This was extremely horrifying to the clansmen. Because Tai Shueleng and 1st Gen Guyu engaged in fierce combat, it caused the mountains to shake. Thus, Guyu village which was right above was greatly affected. Guyu Yao Ji who was staying in the village, did not manage to receive Gu Bo, but instead saw the injured remnants of the 3 clans. What is going on? She shouted loudly. Fong Yuan didn't reply, because the flock of cranes behind her was the best explanation. This? Oh my God! Is our Gu clan going to perish today? Immediately, the village fell into chaos once again. Senior brother, you're junior, I have come here all the way to see you. Why aren't you coming out to meet me? White-brow elderly stood on the crane's back, his tone full of icy killing intent. Before he was finished, on the village square, blood water gushed out like a 10-meter fountain, and the bright red coffin appeared vertically. As a blood-white, 1st Gen Guyu stood inside the coffin, his blood-red eyes staring closely at the white-brow elderly. To think that you didn't die, how did you find this place? As expected, that Gu master earlier was instigated by you. 1st Gen Guyu said hatefully. Chapter 192, Raising Eyebrows and Exhale. How did I find you? Ha ha ha. The white-brow elderly laughed loudly, his voice sounded extremely happy, while his gaze was ruthless. He opened his palm, revealing a Gu. It was the kinship bloodworm. Kinship bloodworm was crystal clear, like a red agate. It was like a cicada, emitting light at times, pointing towards first-gen Guyu. Although senior brother stole my opportunity and backstabbed me, taking away my Gu, I still managed to learn the secret arts. Thus I refined this kinship bloodworm. You know how I refined it? Using the heart blood of your two blood-related sons. They were only 5 to 6 years old and were too young, so without sufficient heart blood, I could only turn them both into living sources, taking their blood every month. After spending tens of years, I finally accumulated enough heart blood and refined this Gu. The white-brow elderly said briskly, his tone extremely smug. Oh, right, both your sons died soon after. After refining the kinship bloodworm, I used it to find you for many years. But this world is too big, and you were nowhere to be found. Even though the kinship bloodworm was rank 5, its range is still limited. Eventually, when I was almost dying, I could only use the life-retaining jade burial Gu, living through death and sealing myself. Not long before this, I had to come out of sealing and I tried one last time. To think I found you by coincidence. Senior brother, do you know how happy and excited I was at that time? As for that Tai Xueleng, I did send him a letter to attract him here. Seeing him, I thought of our former relationship. How nostalgic. Back then we were from the same sect, chasing after demonic cultivators. We were called the righteous twin cranes, having unlimited glory and pride. The white-brow elderly saying so, showed a nostalgic expression. His expression was calm and his tone was gentle, but the more he thought about it, the stronger the killing intent was in both of his cold eyes. This white-brow elderly came from the middle continent. He was known as Lord Sky Crane. Back then, he used the rank 5 crane enslavement Gu and ruled over a myriad beast king level crane king and rose to fame. Because he could enslave a myriad beast king, it meant he controlled a 10,000 beast army. This strength allowed him to use his own power and eliminate a single village. Lord Sky Crane and First Gen Guyu both came from the Middle Continent's Immortal Crane sect. Hundreds of years ago, they were senior and junior brothers, closer than real brothers, killing many demonic Gu masters and working together, having perfect synergy with each other. In one of their attempts in chasing after demonic cultivators, they found an inheritance ground. This inheritance was one of the many set up by the Blood Sea ancestor. But if it was an ordinary inheritance, so be it, they would not have turned on each other. However, this inheritance ground's treasure was beyond precious. It could allow one to rise to the heavens and become an immortal from a mortal. Thus, the two brothers were moved. Legend says, Blood Sea ancestor left behind over 100,000 inheritances, spread throughout the world. But his real motive was the few true treasures hidden in a few of these spots. They hid his personal Gu worms, his true methods. The sect brothers encountered the Blood Sea ancestors' true treasure inheritance. Lord Sky Crane was quicker and obtained the inheritance. Corrupted by greed, First Gen Guyu schemed against him and stole the Gu worm. Then he attempted to kill Lord Sky Crane, but did not succeed as the latter managed to escape. Seeing that the matter was exposed, First Gen Guyu could only hide his name and escape everywhere, preventing himself from getting found by his former sect. After tens of years, he could not find a lifespan Gu, thus in his final days he stood at Qingmao Mountain in the southern border, changing his appearance and calling himself Guyu, establishing the Guyu village. Lord Sky Crane, being unable to find him, was filled with hatred. Meanwhile, the Immortal Crane sect was very interested in the Blood Sea inheritance. Thus with their help, Lord Sky Crane used the life-preserving jade burial Gu, falling into a deep sleep and preserving his last bit of life. This life-preserving jade burial Gu's method was also a special method. Similar to first Gen Guyu's transformation into a zombie, they were unorthodox methods and were just desperate measures. Turning into a zombie, replacing life with death. Life-preserving life burial could enable one to hang on to life, but did not increase their lifespan. There was only one way to increase one's lifespan in this world. Like what Fang Yuan did in his previous life, they would need to use the lifespan Gu, increasing one's own lifespan from the roots. This was the proper way. Other methods had disadvantages and were not recognized by heaven and earth, belonging to helpless resorts. Senior brother. You shameless disciple, despicable scum. Back then when you backstabbed me, did you expect retribution today? Haha, the heavens did not let me down, for I finally found you. Today, not only will I exterminate your bloodline and destroy your 1,000-year plot, but I will also take back my opportunity. This day, I have waited far too long. Ending his reminiscences, Lord Sky Crane sighed loudly, gathering his killing intent. But before he struck, first Gen Guyu acted even faster. The blood water on the ground poured up like a fountain, giving off a terrifying aura. The sharp smell of blood spread as within the thick concentrated blood water, tens of thousands of blood guillotines flew out, tightly packed together. Whoosh! Sounds of wings flapping were heard as countless blade-wing blood bat goo flew into the air, engulfing the sky and killing towards the crane flock. The crane flock fell into chaos. Blood guillotines and blade-wing blood bats were much smaller than the iron-beak flying cranes, gaining movement advantage in battle. Lord Sky Crane was furious, screaming loudly and ordering the flying crane king he was riding on, rushing towards first Gen Guyu. Retreat! A Gu master shouted. The winds howled as the myriad beast king's charge was too imposing, like a meteor hitting the ground, causing people to feel shocked and afraid. But suddenly, a blood wave flew into the sky, and the hiding blood river python assaulted under the cover of the blood water. It opened its mouth, biting at the flying crane king's long neck. At the same time its body coiled, trying to drag the flying crane king into the blood pond on the ground. Lord Sky Crane snorted. He knew about the blood river python. Blood water was like a supreme recovery medicine for the python, thus he needed to cut the contact between them. With this he willed in his mind, and the flying crane king stretched out its steel claws, grabbing onto the blood river python. At the same time it flapped its wings, flying towards the sky. After battling with Tai Shueleng, the blood river python still had many injuries on its body, and its strength was also greatly diminished. Thus it was carried by the flying crane king into the air, slowing leaving the village. Hand over your life. Lord Sky Crane howled, turning into a white flash and pouncing on first Gen Guyu was who in the red coffin. First Gen Guyu took a step out of the coffin, and with a stretch, wings grew out of his back. These pair of wings were large and strong, like jet black colored bat wings. Zombie Gu are a classic series of Gu worms, widely spread in the world. Rank 2 Roaming Zombie Gu, Rank 3 Fur Zombie Gu, Rank 4 Jumping Zombie Gu, Rank 5 Flying Zombie Gu. The blood white Gu was one of the flying zombies, of course it could fly. First Gen Guyu's eyes burnt with raging flames as he opened his arms and showed his devious demonic claws. He spread both wings, rushing towards the sky. With a boom, he collided with Lord Sky Crane who was in the air. The two had almost equal strength, and after retreating for a distance, they stabilized themselves and attacked once again. Boom boom boom. The two engaged in aerial combat, their bodies colliding constantly. The power of Rank 5 was fully displayed, as the aftermath of their conflicts resulted in numerous bamboo buildings collapsing. After a while, first Gen Guyu shouted loudly, his body covered in blood shadows, as his attacks became several times more ruthless. Lord Sky Crane's eyes glowed with light, attacking like the slashing of a flying blade, or the piercing of an immortal sword, breaking the shadows one by one. First Gen Gu Yu breathed out a bloody mist again, prompting Lord Sky Crane to activate his Gu worm, which formed a light barrier, blocking the blood mist from invading. After a while, Lord Sky Crane was after all a dying old man, his elderly body weak, and thus his strength fell, slowly getting overpowered by First Gen Gu Yu, falling into a disadvantage. After hundreds of years, you did not improve one bit. First Gen Gu Yu laughed loudly and mocked. "God-damn scoundrel!" Lord Sky Crane scolded in rage. He did not expect First Gen Gu Yu to be so strong, be it the blood guillotine or the blade-wing blood bat Gu, they were supposed to be his. Thinking so, he got even more furious. "Humph, it's time to use my trump card." Lord Sky Crane snorted secretly, his white eyebrows raising lightly, transforming. His eyebrows grew frantically, becoming two thick bushes over tens of meters, one left and one right like snakes coming out of their dens, moving quickly and coiling around First Gen Gu Yu. First Gen Gu Yu struggled to no avail, his claws unceasingly attacking. These eyebrows looked fragile but were stronger than steel, and also malleable. Once restrained, it was like the roots of an old tree. It is actually the raise eyebrows and exhale Gu. First Gen Gu Yu's tone changed for the first time, shocked and furious. This raise eyebrows and exhale Gu did not use ordinary chi, but primeval energy. Using the primeval essence in the Gu Master's aperture, and sending it out as primeval energy, this Gu was uncommon as it had a lose-lose type of usage. By using this Gu now, not only was First Gen Gu Yu's primeval essence rapidly expended, but so was Lord Sky Crane's. Raise eyebrows and exhale Gu was like a bridge, connecting the two's aperture, causing primeval essence to be expended. It was often used by high-ranking Gu masters to bully the weak. Once used on someone stronger, it was akin to courting death. But this situation was different. Lord Sky Crane and First Gen Gu Yu were both rank 5 peak stage, but First Gen Gu Yu turned into a zombie and his aperture was dead, thus he was unable to recover natural primeval essence. Although Lord Sky Crane was dying of old age and barely had any lifespan, his aperture was full of life, and his primeval essence could still recover. This attacked First Gen Gu Yu's greatest weakness. Lord Sky Crane's primeval essence was still recovering, but in First Gen Gu Yu's aperture, his primeval essence would only go down and not up. First Gen Gu Yu desperately retreated, but the white eyebrows extended with him as if they were endless, and at the same time Lord Sky Crane was moving closer as well. First Gen Gu Yu howled, willing in his mind and calling the blood guillotine and blade-wing blood bat Gu in attempt to cut the white eyebrows, but it had no effect. The white brows were extremely strong, and even if a few were cut, they would reconnect themselves. His primeval essence continued to decrease, and if this went on, First Gen Gu Yu was definitely going to lose. He was after all an ambitious man, forced to his wits' end. He gritted his teeth and changed tactics, sending the blood guillotine and blade-wing blood bat Gu towards Lord Sky Crane. Lord Sky Crane had to constantly sustain the raise eyebrows and exhale Gu, and by being attacked like this, he could only use the light barrier and defend himself passively. The white barrier wavered and Lord Sky Crane's heart sank, the situation was not looking good for him. Most likely, before he finishes expending First Gen Gu Yu's primeval essence, his light barrier would be broken through and he would get killed by First Gen Gu Yu. Chapter 193, Divine Investigator's Last Move. The Sky Crane Lord's face turned malevolent and his two eyes glinted with ominous light as he suddenly threw down a rain of feather arrows. This arrow rain was not targeted at the First Gen Gu Yu. First Gen Gu Yu had already turned into a blood-white zombie, a being that possessed astounding defense and would be difficult to breach. The feather arrows rained down and instead pierced through countless of Gu masters, instantly killing them. Along with this, two white lights burst out from Sky Crane Lord's eyes. As two beams of light swept through the village, wherever they went the bamboo buildings would collapse and street pavements were disintegrated. Anyone that touched these beams of light would melt like the snow meeting the sunlight. When a rank 5 Gu master acts, he could instantly create huge casualties with every move. Miserable shouts, screams and cries of despair continuously rang in the battlefield like a medley. A feather arrow flew towards Fang Yuan, but he casually grabbed someone beside him and threw the man into the arrow's path. The feather arrow pierced this person's head and stopped. Fang Yuan then rolled, dodging a claw attack of an iron-beak flying crane. There was very little that a rank 3 could do against a rank 5. Even Bai Ningbing was dodging non-stop at this moment. Every time he was injured, the northern dark ice soul physique would heal him, but this also brought him closer to death itself. Rank 5 Gu masters were already at the peak of the secular world. Stop! The first Gen Guyu shouted. As he watched the Gu masters before him getting slaughtered, his heart felt like it was bleeding. He had a great conspiracy for establishing the village and spreading his bloodline. It was not simply just to hide his identity. The clan members were the fruits of centuries of planning. But now, as they were slaughtered by the Sky Crane Lord, it was akin to using up the first Gen Guyu's centuries worth of heartblood. Being left with no choice, first Gen Guyu could only 5-up on Sky Crane Lord. He ordered the Blade-Wing Blood Bat Gu and Blood Guillotine to fly towards the village, defending it against the Sky Crane Lord's attacks. The Sky Crane Lord laughed loudly. The Blood Sea inheritance was focused on attack and not defense. By doing this the first Gen Guyu was giving up on his own advantage and using his weak point to battle. The Sky Crane Lord understood the first Gen Guyu very well and knew his scheme. Thus he intentionally let these Guyu clan members go first, and then attacked them at this moment. Sure enough, he was able to escape from the perilous situation he was under while the first Gen Fuyu was troubled by trying to take care of the entire situation. Not good. As the situation continued to be in a deadlock, the first Gen Guyu suddenly shouted. Shadows of iron chains had suddenly appeared around his entire body. These shadows immediately turned from virtual into reality, and formed into long iron chains. These chains were like snakes and pythons as they coiled around first Gen Guyu, binding his hands and feet. A talisman paper also gradually appeared and stuck right between the first Gen Guyu's eyes. Bang! First Gen Guyu was bound by the iron chains. He could no longer stretch his wings and thus he fell smashing down onto the ground. Such an unexpected scene not only shocked the first Gen Guyu, but it also caused Sky Crane Lord to be shocked for a while before the latter started to laugh madly. So this is the Demon Suppression Iron Chain Gu and the problem nipped in the bud Gu. Ha ha ha, I guess that so-called divine investigator wasn't a good-for-nothing after all. My good senior brother, you are sure to die today. These two great Gu were both the main Gu worms of the Tai family. The Demon Suppression Iron Chain Gu could restrict a Gu master's movement ability and thus let others trample upon them. The problem nipped in the bud Gu was able to extract Gu worms from inside the Gu master and seal them away. Countless numbers of demonic path Gu masters had been captured by Tai Xueling through these two Gu, and now he had used it on the first Gen Guyu. When did this happen? The first Gen Guyu was startled and also furious. He thought back to the final scene when he had struck Tai Xueling dead. The copper mask had flown away, revealing a square face. Although his death was certain, there was no fear on his features. Two eyes shone with the vicissitudes of time and resoluteness as his bloodied palm struck lightly against first Gen Guyu's chest. However, the strength it contained was so minuscule that first Gen Guyu had completely ignored it at the time. So it was then. Damn it, I would have already sensed it if I had a living body. But though my zombie body is strong in both offense and defense, it is not sensitive. The first Gen Guyu's head was full of regrets. There were many shortcomings in turning one's body into a blood white. He should have already died according to his original lifespan, but he lived on by defying the heavens, so how could there not be any price to pay? Ha ha ha. The Sky Crane Lord's aura grew with his laughter, then he charged towards the first Gen Guyu. First Gen Guyu could only try to resist. Naturally, he fell into an absolute disadvantage. The demon suppression iron chain Gu not only bound his whole body, but the phantom image of the black iron chain also appeared within his aperture and sealed it. The primeval sea surged like boiling water and many Gu worms flew around in the aperture, resisting the suppression of the demon suppression iron chain Gu. With this, the first Gen Gu Yu's primeval essence expenditure became extremely huge. Your defeat is certain, except your death. Sky Crane Lord's attacks came non-stop, like he had fallen into madness. First Gen Gu Yu's head was riddled with injuries, while his pale ribs were exposed and his 2 arms severed from the shoulders by the Sky Crane Lord. When it seemed that Sky Crane Lord was going to really kill him, the first Gen Gu Yu suddenly opened his mouth and gave an unearthly cry. Yanning. Extremely ear-piercing sound waves concentrated and instantly struck the Sky Crane Lord. When Sky Crane Lord heard this sound, he felt like he had just met with an enormous attack, and he was sent flying dozens of steps away, his white eyebrows even pulled tight and straight. After that, he rapidly fell down to the ground. Blood started flowing out of his eyes, nose, ears and mouth. The lingering sound was causing chaos inside his body, causing the blood to flow in reverse. He couldn't move at all for a moment. Seeing this chance, many Gu masters threw moon blades, water bullets, and so on from a distance, but they were all blocked by the light halo on the Sky Crane Lord. Dozens of flying cranes swarmed at the first Gen Gu Yu, but their iron beaks felt like it was smashing against steel skin and iron bones as they attacked the blood-white zombie body, and broke off one after another. A rank 5 Gu's defense was no small thing. Even if Fang Yuan used the chainsaw golden centipede to saw at the blood-white zombie body for some time, he might not be able to cut off even a piece of skin. Right now, in this battle, only these 2 rank 5 Gu masters could threaten each other. Although they were in a very bad state, as long as their primeval essence didn't end, others could only look on helplessly. Sky Crane Lord saw that the flying cranes were unable to accomplish anything, while the flying crane king was fighting with the Blood River Python far away. As for himself, he was unable to move anything other than his eyes properly due to his chi and blood being in conflict. He concentrated his mind on the raise eyebrows and exhale Gu, greatly accelerating the primeval essence consumption. First Gen Gu Yu was on the verge of death. The primeval essence in his primeval sea quickly decreased, and once it was completely used up, his Gu worms would have no primeval essence to resist the suppression of the demon suppression iron chain Gu. Once this happened, problem nipped in the bud Gu would start extracting the Gu worms and sealing them. That would truly be the end. First Gen Gu Yu shouted in panic, "Quick, lend me a hand. Grab the eyebrows and activate your primeval essence. Let's help. Help the first ancestor. Let's go." A large group of Gu masters went to help, not only from Guyu clan, but even Bai and Xiong clan. Even first Gen Gu Yu was not able to cut apart these white eyebrows, so there was no way these Gu masters' methods would work. They could only do as first Gen Gu Yu said, stretching their hands and grabbing the white eyebrows. They had just touched the white eyebrows, when some of the eyebrows split up and coiled around their wrists, arms, and then finally extended to their bodies. Ah! Miserable shrieks echoed in succession. How could a rank 2 Gu master's primeval essence fight against a rank 5 primeval essence? In a short while, their primeval essence was consumed clean, their primeval sea was empty, their apertures completely dried up, their apertures started to crack, before finally crumbling and collapsing. The aperture was the most vital part in a human body, even more important than heart. Once the aperture broke, many Gu masters' eyes would roll and lose their lives on the spot. Fuck. First Gen Gu Yu cursed in anger. The demon suppression iron chain Gu was tightening up, piercing into the skin and flesh. The bones were starting to make cackling sounds. It was reasonable to say that with Tai Xueling's death, this demon suppression iron chain Gu couldn't get primeval essence from its Gu master and shouldn't have been able to activate. However, it had been infected by the berserk blood Gu, and thus it could absorb the primeval essence in the air. Also, demon suppression iron chain Gu was Tai Xueling's Gu, so it contained Tai Xueling's will to subdue first Gen Gu Yu. First Gen Gu Yu's primeval essence was depleting quickly, and he would not be able to bear it much longer. Many Gu masters that were rushing to provide assistance saw this and couldn't help but slow down. What are you afraid of? If the first ancestor loses, we will also die. Are you hoping that you will be spared? Fong Yuan shouted. He hurried to the side of first Gen Gu Yu and grabbed the white eyebrows. The thousandly earthwolf spider had already died, and the enemy had flying cranes that could fly around to pursue and attack. There was no hope for him if he tried to escape alone. On the contrary, if he helped first Gen Gu Yu and the two sides fought each other to death, he might be able to reap some benefits. The white eyebrows firmly locked onto Fong Yuan's wrists, then it followed to his arms and creeped along like a vine towards his waist. The snow-silver primeval essence in his aperture was being quickly consumed, but Fong Yuan clenched his teeth and persevered. His actions served as an example. Other Gu masters were spurred and rushed forth in succession. Let's do this together, we might have a chance at life. That's right, there is strength in numbers. Sigh, what else can we do, we can only stake our lives. Countless hands touched the white eyebrows, Gu masters kept on dying and many other Gu masters kept on filling the gaps to add into the consumption. Ha ha ha, fighting against a rank 5, how brilliant and interesting. Bai Ningbing also stepped forward. Life or death will be decided by this. Xiong Jiaoman similarly stood up. Fang Zheng was nowhere to be seen, he was lost in the wild and hadn't escaped back to the village. Whether he lived or had died, no one could be sure, but everything bode ill for him. Time seemed to be passing very slowly at this moment, becoming unendurable. As time passed, many Gu masters died. Some Gu masters directly attacked Sky Crane Lord, but the white halo around him stood as steady as empty Tai. Only rank 3 Gu masters could hold their grounds in this consumption face-off. Many Gu masters' confidence started shaking and they were beginning to hesitate. Both sides were locked up in deadlock. Sky Crane Lord smiled grimly and said, "My victory is certain, you will all die." There was too big a gap between rank 3 and rank 5. Rank 4s would have been able to affect the situation, but the 3 rank 4 clan leaders were already killed by Sky Crane Lord. First Gen Gu Yu was bound by the iron chains while the white eyebrows had also coiled up around him and the problem nipped in the bud Gu on his forehead was swaying. There was already very few primeval essence left in his aperture. Suddenly the problem nipped in the bud Gu let out a faint yellow light and slowly extracted a ball of yellow light from first Gen Gu Yu's aperture. This yellow light was bigger than a fist but smaller than a basin. It slowly floated down on the ground, and only a faint glimmer of the yellow light remained. A Gu that looked like a crystal skull showed up. The Gu was like a skull of a child that could fit on a palm, and the skull was like a crystal filled with reddish blood stripes. Blood Skull Gu. After hundreds of years, I finally get to see you again. Sky Crane Lord looked on from a distance and wept tears of joy, he was extremely moved. Chapter 194, Blood Curtain Skyflower. First Gen Gu Yu clenched his bloody fangs so hard that it made cracking sounds, but he couldn't even budge, much less struggle. Suddenly, another ball of light was captured by the yellow talisman and it fell to the ground, turning into an alternating black and white Taiji light sphere. Two peculiar goo worms were circling and chasing each other within this light sphere. As the Taiji light sphere continued to rotate, they seemed to carry traces of great Tao, shocking many goo masters. What goo is this? Bai Ningbing and many others were bewildered. It actually is a rank 4. Fang Yuan's eyes focused in concentration. Yin Yang rotation goo. Sky Crane Lord screamed, his face clearly revealing his shock. He remained stunned for a while, then he raised his head and laughed, "My good senior brother, I truly have to thank you for finding such a good goo. Ha ha ha, you actually wanted to turn back into a human, but what a pity, for your plan has been destroyed by me." First Gen Guyu anxiously moved his legs and snarled, he had completely lost his manners. Whether it was Blood Skull Gu or Yin Yang Rotation Gu, they were both crucial to his plan that stretched through a millennium. Now, they were both sealed and extracted, all his painstaking plotting had almost gone up into smoke now. Sky Crane Lord's smile turned even more jubilant, his desire for vengeance was fully satisfied by seeing this expression of first Gen Guyu. Another yellow light that was captured fell to the ground. It was a scarlet-colored goo and looked like a translucent water sphere. On seeing this goo, first Gen Guyu suddenly stopped his struggle, he was exulted. He opened his bloody mouth, revealing his fangs as he shouted, "Quick, destroy this goo worm." Several goo masters immediately moved forward upon hearing this and used their attacks. This goo had been sealed by problem and nipped in the bud goo, stopping the first Gen Guyu from activating it with his thoughts. There was a layer of yellow light on the surface carrying an imprint, it could only be unsealed by Tai Shueleng or by using some special goo worms. However, this goo was an expendable goo and was special as it needed to be destroyed to be activated. Several goo masters made their moves, the yellow light imprint was only a sealing goo worm and didn't have any defensive powers. After several attacks, the yellow light imprint collapsed, destroying the sealed goo worm along with it. Buzz! A soft cry resounded, and a blood light bloomed, suddenly expanding and turning into a spherical shield within moments. First Gen Guyu was within the shield, while Sky Crane Lord was outside. The blood-red shield's range was 6 mu, and Bai Ningbing and Fang Yuan were both within the shield, whereas Xiong Man and some others were outside. The most encouraging part was that the white eyebrows were instantly cut apart into 2 halves by this shield. With the disintegration of the white eyebrows, Fang Yuan and others recovered control of their bodies. The aura of this shield reaches rank 5, but why does it resemble the water curtain skyflower goo? Fang Yuan was bewildered, he had never seen this goo before. Sky Crane Lord was separated by this shield, and he staggered up before laughing coldly, "Senior brother, such a good move, you are actually able to counterattack and break my raise eyebrows and exhale goo. It's a pity such a trifle defense won't work against me, you are just prolonging your imminent defeat by doing this." First Gen Guyu instead laughed loudly, "Junior brother, how about testing it yourself?" "That's my intention." Killing intent flashed in Sky Crane Lord's eyes, countless flying cranes and feather arrows shot towards the shield, while his eyes also sent out the white beams at the same time. However, the blood shield was still unshakable and was as stable as before. Sky Crane Lord's face turned extremely dark as he stopped his attacks. "What goo is this?" Guyu first threw his head back and laughed, "Let me teach you, this is my personally fused goo, Blood Curtain Skyflower Goo. The Water Curtain Skyflower Goo, a rank 4 goo, can block rank 5 goo attacks. This goo is at rank 5 and has even more powerful defense. Water Curtain Skyflower Goo prevents its owner from going in and out, but this Blood Curtain Skyflower Goo lets me go out. Junior brother, don't be impatient, you can attack slowly, use all your strength. Just wait till I recover, then I'll come out and cut your dog head, ahaha." You thief, keep on boasting. Sky Crane Lord was in turmoil. He had everything in his grasp before, but to think first Gen Guyu was able to recover some ground and the situation turned into a deadlock again. He attacked madly and extremely fiercely, killing all the Gu masters outside the shield including Xianxia Man. However, inside the blood curtain Skyflower Gu, all was calm and quiet. The blood shield was as stable as empty Tai, and the group of Gu masters inside the shield were relieved. First Ancestor is indeed an unrivaled hero. We are finally saved. The first Ancestor will show his divine might and this person will definitely be defeated. This is the strength of rank 5 Gu Master. I am actually still alive in front of such strength. The Gu Masters cheered and shouted. On the contrary, Bai Ningbing snorted, his death was certain due to the 10 extreme aptitude, but this deadlock decreased the splendor of it and he was not happy about it. Sky Crane Lord kept on attacking for a long while with no results. At one moment, he suddenly stopped as if he had woken up. First Gen Guyu's words were meant to incite him into attacking the blood curtain Skyflower Gu and wasting his primeval essence. If he wasn't wrong, this blood curtain Skyflower Gu had the same effect as water curtain Skyflower Gu. Its fusion price was extremely high and belonged to one-time use expendable category, but it had a high defense, albeit with a set duration. It would automatically dissipate after a certain amount of time. At this thought, Sky Crane Lord sat cross-legged, then took out 2 primeval stones and pinched them, starting to recover his primeval essence. Lend me a hand, you will only have a chance at life by helping me. Primeval stones, I need a large number of them. First Gen Guyu shouted, the surrounding Gu masters immediately took out primeval stones and piled them around him. First Gen Guyu opened his bloody mouth wide and breathed in deeply, sucking the primeval stones into his mouth. Crack, he chewed the primeval stones, large amounts of natural primeval essence poured into his aperture. On seeing this, the Sky Crane Lord became anxious and started shouting, "Don't give them to him, you morons. Once he recovers his movement, he will kill you all and use your blood to upgrade his aptitude. You are causing your own doom." Humph, using such a low-level tactic to sow distrust, so ridiculous. Quick, this old thief is telling us not to give it, so we need to give even more primeval stones. Everything depends on Lord Ancestor. Gu Masters provided the primeval stones generously and soon, great quantities of primeval stones entered first Gen Guyu's mouth. Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing watched indifferently from the side. A normal body wouldn't be able to endure such a large amount of primeval essence pouring into them, but first Gen Guyu's blood-white zombie body was powerful and strong. The primeval essence in his primeval sea began to rise rapidly. The demon suppression iron chain Gu was becoming weaker, and after quite a while, it turned into a pool of blood. It had thoroughly died out. With the bindings gone, first Gen Guyu gave a long roar and activated his blood-white vital Gu. Great quantities of blood were absorbed into his body, and within moments, his powerful arms grew back again with claws as sharp as a knife. He gave a hearty laugh then stood up. At this exact moment, the problem nipped in the bud Gu on his forehead also turned into a pool of blood and completely dissipated. It seems the heavens do not want me dead. First Gen Guyu threw his head back and laughed. We ask First Ancestor to behead this old thief. Once the Lord Ancestor makes his move, he will definitely succeed. The group of Gu Masters was elated. First Gen Guyu's laughter gradually stopped, and fire burned in his eyes as he spoke unhurriedly, I will, of course, kill my enemy. But before killing him, I still have something I need to do. Not good. Fang Yuan's heart suddenly jumped when he heard the tone of the voice, and he discreetly moved towards the outer edge of the group. The people beside him were puzzled by this but they were still filled with high fighting spirit, We are not sure what first ancestor has to do, but we will serve the ancestor to the best of our abilities. First Gen Guyu threw his head back and cackled with laughter. The thing I need to do is to take your lives. What? The crowd turned pale with shock. First Gen Guyu, however, didn't hesitate to make his move. Squelch, his claw immediately pierced through a rank 3 Gu master near him. When he took back his palm, there was a pulsing heart on it. This Gu master was a Guyu clan member, and his expression was one of disbelief at this moment. He gave a loud scream, blood spurting out like a fountain as he fell down with his head facing up. Good blood, it can't be wasted, First Gen Guyu exclaimed. With a shift of his mind, the blood skull Gu flew up and made one round around this Gu master's body. The Gu master's corpse twitched, and all the blood in him was extracted by the blood skull Gu, entering into its 2 empty eye sockets. After the blood skull Gu drank its fill, the blood stripes on its crystal skull turned even brighter. First ancestor, you. As the group retreated with all their might, someone cried out. Noisy. First Gen Guyu's figure flashed and appeared in front of this person, slashing his body into 2 with a knife. Blood spurted out and was absorbed by the blood skull Gu. First ancestor, you ungrateful beast, if not for our primeval stones, how could you have any fighting strength left? This first ancestor is no decent person, everyone let's attack together and kill him. That's right, there is power in numbers, ah. A bloody massacre unfolded. First Gen Guyu was a peak rank 5 and he had completely recovered his primeval essence. These Gu masters were just rank 1, rank 2 or at most rank 3, so how could they be his match? And this blood curtain skyflower separated inside from outside, forming a sealed space. Only its master, First Gen Guyu could go out. But once he exited, he couldn't enter again, he would have to destroy the blood curtain skyflower or wait for it to dissipate. The group of Gu masters weren't able to escape, they tried fighting but were utterly defeated and killed by First Gen Guyu. Except for Bai clans and Xiong clans Gu masters, he killed every Guyu clansman and used the blood skull Gu to absorb the blood. After killing several hundreds, the rank 4 blood skull Gu was glistening red, as it had reached the limit of what it could absorb. First Gen Guyu laughed loudly and summoned the blood skull Gu. The blood skull Gu came towards him and floated above his head. This day, this moment, my centuries of arduous planning has finally come to fruition. He let out a long exhalation of relief. At this moment, the blood skull Gu opened its tightly shut mouth and threw up a blood fountain. The blood fountain didn't have the fishy odor of blood, but instead let out a sweet relaxing fragrance. This blood fountain poured from above First Gen Guyu and completely soaked him. However, what was strange and mysterious was that not even a drop of the blood fountain sprayed on the ground. All of the blood stuck to First Gen Guyu's body, then slowly seeped inside, finally reaching the aperture. First Gen Guyu stood on the spot, he was silent and his head was down as he appreciated this moment. Suddenly, he burst out with a crazed laughter as he spoke, "Kaka, my aptitude has advanced, my aptitude has really advanced." The rest of the Gu masters tremored. Outside the blood shield, Sky Crane Lord pointed at First Gen Guyu and furiously shouted, "Return my blood skull Gu back to me." Chapter 195, Then Let Me Become a Demon. First Gen Guyu laughed with even more joy. Suddenly, he stopped laughing and turned towards Lord Sky Crane, speaking with a voice filled with hatred, "Junior brother, you never thought there would be a day like this, right? We were both orphans raised by the Master. But since young, Master always pampered you more. Why? Isn't it because your aptitude is a grade and mine is only C grade? Naturally, with your A grade aptitude, your cultivation progressed much faster. Did you know, with my C grade aptitude, how much sweat and effort I had to put in compared to you, just barely be able to match with your pace? Although we were called the twin cranes of righteous paths, you were always the main and I the second. You were like the brightest star, just because you were an A-grade genius. Even your luck was good and you obtained one of the true inheritances of Blood Sea ancestor. Daoist Gu could purify the blood of the relatives killed and pour them into the aperture, upgrading it. Did you know what my mood was like at the time? I thought day and night, thinking of countless schemes. I knew the Daoist Gu was my only hope. With it, I could change my life, change my fate. But it is mine, mine. Lord Sky Crane was so angry that he stamped his feet repeatedly. Yes, it is yours. First Gen Gu nodded, your aptitude is great and your luck is also great. Clearly, we started out at the same time, killing enemies together, but the heavens only appreciated you, giving you the true inheritance. Did you know, when I looked at your proud expression and listened to you talking about your future plans, when I was forcing myself to smile, I suddenly realized. The heavens favored you, gave you a great aptitude and the true Blood Sea inheritance. But what could I do about it? I was only an insignificant C-grade talent, so how could I succeed just by relying on myself? I could only seize, rob. Change what wasn't mine to become mine. The fate that heaven had planned for me was to let me bow under someone, making me a shadow behind others. But I am indignant, for on what basis did he put me below and you above? First Gen Gu you actually seemed to be weeping and whimpering at the end. Blood White Zombie's appearance was extremely terrifying, and adding on to this strange sound, anyone who heard it would feel coldness seep into their bones. Since the heavens don't favor me, Master doesn't love me, other people don't value me, I can only love myself more, I can only value myself more, I can only rely on myself more. I can only put in more effort, I can only take more risks, I can only exert myself more. Only then can I succeed. But the righteous path talks of moral codes, ethics, comradeship, qualifications, hierarchy. I am only a lone person, a nobody with no background, no talent and no resources. So tell me, how could I succeed? With the righteous path, I could only let myself be exploited and bullied, I could only look up to these young masters and geniuses. Even if I kept on increasing my qualifications until I got old, I would only achieve minute success. This is the righteous path, a bullshit path. Only by becoming a demon, forsaking ethics, comradeship, the social rules and paying a huge price, I could take another path among the thorns and brambles, a path that belonged to myself. So, I schemed against you, seized your Blood Sea true inheritance and became a demon. And a demon I became. A demon I became. A demon I became. The voice reverberated within the blood shield. Outside the shield, Lord Sky Crane was in a quiet and somber mood. First Gen Gu slowly stopped laughing then began killing again. Large numbers of Gu masters were killed, their blood absorbed by the Daoist Gu and concentrated into the blood fountain, pouring into First Gen Gu's aperture and raising his aptitude. The higher the aptitude, the more primeval essence could be stored in the aperture. As First Gen Gu killed more and more Gu clansmen, his aptitude kept on increasing. After chewing the primeval stones, his primeval essence increased and his fighting strength became more powerful. Outside the blood shield, Lord Sky Crane was burning with anxiety, but the blood curtain skyflower was like a deep chasm, he could do nothing but sigh. He had tried to prevent it, but he could only give up. As time passed on, there were only a few numbers of people left inside the blood shield. Brat, you stole the heavenly essence treasure lotus. I will give you a chance to atone for your crime, obediently hand it over and your life will be spared. First Gen Gu walked closer step by step, his killing intent firmly locking Feng Yuan. Feng Yuan knew the chance of his survival was scarce, but his expression didn't change and instead sneered, only 3-year-old children might be deceived by your bullshit. I will destroy Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus if you come any closer. You should know that I have refined this goo and can easily cause it to self-destruct with a thought. It's up to you. First Gen Gu Yu's steps slowed, then he resolutely and quickly pressed on towards Fong Yuan. Brat, you have guts and you are smart too. You are indeed my descendant, I will take your blood and use it to raise my aptitude. Of course, I won't let you go. Originally, I used a blood-type goo to purify my heir's blood lineage, to try and bring out a descendant with the ancient moon desolatine physique. As long as I absorbed the blood of such a genius, I would be able to raise my aptitude sharply to 99% a grade aptitude. If it had been so, I could have let you guys go, but unfortunately your luck doesn't seem to be good. Humph, the thing I hate the most in my life is being coerced. If Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus dies then so be it, but you are sure to die. His words hadn't even finished when the two wings on his back flapped, propelling him forward. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Fong Yuan. First Gen Gu Yu made a grabbing motion with his right hand. In that split second, Fong Yuan's pupils shrunk, and his hairs stood on the end as he retreated hastily. However, how could it be easy to dodge a rank 5 expert? The blood-white claws were almost upon him, but suddenly an ice hand pierced in from his side. Bang! There was the sound of a collision, and the ice hand shattered and cold aura flew all over the place. The first Gen Gu Yu had to take a step back. Bai Ningbing. Fong Yuan was shocked when he turned around to look at the person who had helped him. Bai Ningbing took back his broken arm, and cold air blew out from the wound and instantly condensed into a new ice hand just like before. It was just that there was no flesh in the hand, he was already reaching the lifespan limits of his 10 extreme aptitude. To think that I can have such a splendid death. It's a pity I won't be able to see the conclusion to this battle. Bai Ningbing heaved a deep sigh, then suddenly smiled and looked at Fong Yuan with his deep blue pupils. Fong Yuan, you and I are the same kind of people. My death is certain, but it would be a real pity if you were to die too. So I will protect you, but I have a condition. Bai Ningbing may only be a rank 3 Gu master, but as his death closed upon him, his fighting strength continued to grow steeply like a water fountain. The final hope to win against First Gen Gu Yu was him. What condition? Fong Yuan's gaze flashed. Bai Ningbing stretched out his two arms like he was embracing the world. Clothed in a white gown, matching with his snowy white hair and sharp eyebrows, he said, "Live on for me and witness the myriad wonders of this world." In that moment, Fong Yuan was emotionally moved. This man. Fong Yuan looked at Bai Ningbing and he felt like he was looking at his younger self in his previous life. Bai Ningbing's words might sound like nonsense, but they were genuine. Maybe, ordinary people would never believe it, but Fong Yuan understood the profound meaning contained within these words. Bai Ningbing was a top genius, his talent in defiance of the heavens but his lifespan superficially short. He had already found his path, and found his faith. He wasn't afraid of death, but he was reluctant to leave this world. He had regrets, but under this situation where he had no other alternatives, he could only entrust them to Fong Yuan. Oh, it actually is Northern Dark Ice Soul Physique. TSK, such a pity that you are not a descendant of my lineage, otherwise they wouldn't have needed to die. First Gen Gu Yu smiled malevolently. But you want to block me by relying on this Northern Dark Ice Soul Physique? So naive. His figure disappeared and appeared right in front of Bai Ningbing. Boom! There was a noise of explosion, and the two had traded off a blow. First Gen Gu Yu was forced back 2 steps whereas Bai Ningbing's whole skull and most of his body was blown away. But in the next instant, crackle, crack. Cold air permeated the area, ice and frost condensed together to again grow out the body and the skull. Bai Ningbing was resurrected. What? First Gen Gu Yu got the shock of his life. 10 extreme aptitudes were rarely seen and this was the first time he was facing one. Two people traded off blows again. In the end, Bai Ningbing's cultivation level was weak and was firmly pressed in a disadvantageous position, so the situation looked very bad. However, no matter how first Gen Guyu killed him, he didn't die. At this moment, Bai Ningbing's northern dark ice soul body was close to an undying body. No matter how severe the wounds, they would be frozen back to the original state in a matter of seconds. Guyu Bo was becoming more furious and also fearful, and he crazily increased his offensive attacks. Bai Ningbing gradually lost all color of life, turning into a moving iceman. Even his white hair had turned into thin icicles. The time had finally arrived. Death was descending at this moment. Infinite brilliance in the mortal realm, to the ends of the world the skies and seas stretch beyond. As the winds blow my ashes back to the earth, it is incomparable to the shining moon in the reflection of the water. Bai Ningbing recited a poem with a faint smile. Henceforth, his facial expression froze. There was a burst of cold wind and the fog like frost suddenly rose up. Crackle. Large amounts of ice started spreading from under his feet, then the glacier rose up like the birth of a mountain. The surging majestic ice was like a landslide, like a tsunami, like a dragon rolling on the waves, as it crushed towards First Gen Guyu. First Gen Guyu let out a gasp and brought out all his strength to resist it. The red hairs on his head were all standing on end, mist of blood rising from all over his body, and large numbers of blood guillotine and blade-wing blood bat Gu were sent to crash against the glacier in an attempt to slow it down even by a bit. In the end, he was still suppressed by the glacier, confined and engulfed. The enormous glacier filled the whole blood shield, but it didn't touch Fang Yuan as he was in a small space left intentionally by Bai Ningbing. Bang! The blood-curtained skyflower burst with a soft sound. With no hindrances, the cold air crazily flew around, and ice immediately condensed into a glacier which continued to spread. It broke the shield of blood-curtained skyflower Gu. Such power! Lord Sky Crane didn't dare face the glacier as he promptly took to the air. Under his astonished gaze, the glacier continued to spread and actually covered the whole Qing Mao mountain from the top of the mountain to the bottom. In this instance, the lush, thriving Qing Mao mountain turned into a sinister land of ice and snow. The icy ground under Fang Yuan's feet continued to raise higher. He too was personally observing this scene. This thousand-li glacier was the evidence of the fall of a young genius, and contained within it was Bai Ningbing's indignance and helpless sigh. Not good, I need leave this place soon. Bai Ningbing's consciousness is weakening and gradually dying out, he is already losing the control of the glacier. Fang Yuan found that the space he was on was shrinking, ice continuously condensed and moved forward, compressing the space he was on. Chapter 196, Rebirth Once More. Fang Yuan immediately used the chainsaw golden centipede, as well as the blood moon Gu, trying to break the ice. But the ice layer was way too thick, and the coldness was oozing. Every layer of ice he shaved off, 2 layers would grow. Fang Yuan was trapped in a desperate situation, without any way to free himself. At this same time, blood light emerged from under the icy river. There was initially a hint of blood light, but it soon spread, becoming stronger and stronger, until a blood-colored aurora enveloped the area. Ha ha ha. With a long laugh, blood light rushed towards the sky as First Gen Guyu broke the ice and escaped. Although he looked miserable, his tone was arrogant. This northern dark ice soul physique, if he reached rank 4, he might be able to kill me. Sadly for him, he is only a rank 3 peak stage. Saying so, he turned his gaze to Fang Yuan within the ice river. Northern dark ice soul physique couldn't kill you, then let me do it. Far in the sky, Lord Sky Crane flew over casually. The ironbeak flying crane king he was sitting on, had already returned after killing the Blood River python when they flew away earlier. At this point, in the entire Qing Mao Mountain, only 3 people remained. Bai Ningbing had already turned into the ice mountain, his consciousness expended. Fang Yuan was like an insect inside an amber, trapped within the ice. As for the 2 rank 5 Gu masters, however, after first Gen Guyu raised his aptitude, his aperture could store much more primeval essence. Lord Sky Crane had already recovered most of his strength after resting. The two's gaze were focused on Fang Yuan. First Gen Guyu wanted to kill Fang Yuan, to take his blood. Lord Sky Crane wanted to stop first Gen Guyu, and he would naturally not restrict himself by protecting Fang Yuan, thus he could only strike first and kill Fang Yuan. With their natures, they would not tolerate a bystander. After all, what if both of them got injured, and a third person profited from it? Fang Yuan sighed. Seeing their gazes, he knew he was finished. He had lost the Thunderwings Gu and Thousandly Earthwolf Spider. Even if he had them, he could not escape from 2 rank 5 Gu masters. He only had rank 3 peak stage cultivation, incomparable with rank 5. In this situation, he was like fish meat easily cut by knives. And these were 2 extremely sharp knives. He could not beat them in combat and couldn't escape from them either, but Fang Yuan had a final move. That is, Spring-Autumn Cicada. Fang Yuan's mind went into his aperture. The light walls in his aperture had turned into a rough stone aperture. His snow-silver primeval essence was about half left. The stone aperture no longer had recovery abilities, but Fang Yuan's heavenly essence treasure lotus maintained such a scene in his aperture. These were not important, he placed all his concentration on the Gu in the middle. His vital Gu, the rank 6 Spring-Autumn Cicada. Only by using this Gu could he travel against the flow of time, creating a new miracle. Using an impossible method to change fate itself. Even then, such a method was extremely risky. The River of Time is a forbidden area in the Great Tao, mortals are not allowed to traverse in it. Once they enter, it is breaking the rules of heaven and earth, and they would face divine retribution. Secondly, Spring-Autumn Cicada had not fully recovered, so it was like a broken boat forcefully traveling in the River of Time, he might capsize midway and sink. Lastly, Fang Yuan was only at rank 3 peak stage. Activating the Spring-Autumn Cicada now was like a baby using a sword, and he might easily get hurt by the sword. Once I use the Spring-Autumn Cicada, I will have to self-detonate. Using all my cultivation and the flesh and blood of my body, as well as all my other Gu worms, as a driving force to move the Spring-Autumn Cicada forward. Compared to my previous life, even if I self-detonate, this force is too small, and there is a high chance it would kill me directly. But at this point, I have no other ways left, I am forced to use this Gu. Fang Yuan was helpless too. Earlier, he would rather use the stone aperture Gu than the Spring-Autumn Cicada, because of the great risk involved. Given 100%, there was less than even 10% chance of succeeding. Many times, when Gu masters use high-ranking Gu, they would face a strong backlash. Like Gu Yuqing Shu, right now Fang Yuan could only bet on the fact that Spring-Autumn Cicada is his vital Gu. Little rascal, hand over your life and contribute your blood to your ancestor. Lad, you are unlucky, you can only blame this despicable ancestor of yours. I will set you free from your misery. First Gen Guyu and Lord Sky Crane both attacked at once. Fang Yuan was forced to the cliff's end, he could only jump. Spring-Autumn Cicada, do it. His eyes glowed with wondrous light, as 2 green and yellow lights burst forth from his body. This aura. How can this be? A rank 6 Gu. At once, the 2 rank 5 Gu masters were shocked, but soon, greed emerged on their faces. Kill him and take the rank 6 Gu. This is an opportunity from heaven, good lad, hand it over and I may spare your life. Their speed was even faster than before. But at this time, a loud boom occurred. Fang Yuan's self detonated. What? Before his death, he heard the two rank 5 Gu masters' cries of shock. Legend says, the world has one long river, known as time. Humans were like fish in the river, and under the currents, the fish could only flow downwards. Sometimes, one or two fish would jump above the surface of the river and see the events below. This was predicting the future. Without the river of time, the world would be still, becoming a drawing. Only with this river can change occur, and the world can move, either prospering or withering. The river of time, with roaring currents. Every ripple was a story, an event that occurred in the past. Under the turbulent river water, a tiny Gu worm was flowing upstream. It spread its wings, moving with difficulty. With the waves crashing against it, every impact could nearly cause its demise. It carried Fang Yuan's consciousness and memories, while a yellow-green light was protecting its body. It moved up the river shakingly, like a candle blown by the wind. Eventually, it could only move up a little, before the yellow-green light dispersed. The spring-autumn cicada had reached its limit, and with a swoosh, it turned into a flash and burrowed into one of the ripples. Fang Yuan's body shook, his eyes having a tint of yellow-green light deep within. This light flashed by quickly, and Fang Yuan shuddered. Consciousness and memories assaulted his brain, merging instantly. He succeeded. He was extremely happy, he had rebirthed once more. After sensing this, he immediately looked around, observing his surroundings. He found that his primeval essence was being expended as his arms and body were coiled by white eyebrows. Seeing once again, oh! So it was this moment. Tai Xueleng's backup plan activated already. First Gen Guyu was trapped by iron chains, not being able to move. His forehead also had a yellow talisman, the demon suppression iron chain Gu, and the problem nipped in the bud Gu. That Lord Sky Crane also landed on the ground, his body covered in a white barrier. He activated the raise eyebrows and exhale Gu, trying to exhaust all of first Gen Guyu's primeval essence. Fang Yuan squinted. He was coiled by the white eyebrows, not able to move, thus he could only use up primeval essence and wait for a good chance. Under the effect of the problem nipped in the bud Gu, a yellow light flew out of first Gen Guyu's body. This yellow light was about fist size, smaller than a person's face. It casually landed on the ground, showing the blood skull Gu inside. Blood skull Gu. After hundreds of years, I finally see you again. Lord Sky Crane on seeing this, was exhilarated and his expression extremely excited. Guyu first head clenched his bloody fangs so hard that it made cracking sounds, but he couldn't even budge, much less struggle. Suddenly, another ball of light was captured by the yellow talisman and fell to the ground, turning into the alternating black and white Taiji light sphere. Two peculiar Gu worms were circling and chasing each other within this light sphere. It was the yin-yang rotation Gu. According to Fang Yuan's memories, Lord Sky Crane shouted again, "Yin-yang rotation Gu, my good senior brother, I truly have to thank you for finding such a good Gu. Ha ha ha, you actually wanted to turn back to a human, but what a pity your plan was destroyed by me." Fang Yuan looked at first Gen Guyu. Indeed, he was anxiously moved his legs and snarled, he had completely lost his manners. Wait a bit longer, my opportunity is coming. Fang Yuan's eyes shone with brilliance, choosing to wait a bit longer. The third yellow light that was captured fell to the ground. It was a scarlet-colored Gu and looked like a translucent water sphere. Fang Yuan's heart jumped, blood curtain skyflower. It was this Gu that changed the situation and allowed first Gen Guyu to overturn the crisis. Blood curtain skyflower was created by first Gen Guyu. Fang Yuan didn't know it earlier, but now he was clear of its effects. Indeed, afterwards, first Gen Guyu shouted, "Quick someone, destroy this Gu worm." Several Gu masters immediately moved forward upon hearing this and immediately used their attacks. Swoosh! A soft cry resounded, blood curtain skyflower appeared again, the blood color sphere shield isolating the two areas. Some people were outside, while some were inside. The blood shield broke the white eyebrows completely, and Fang Yuan and the others no longer had to compete with the Lord Sky Crane in primeval essence, thus regaining freedom. Lord Sky Crane was blocked by this Gu, hurriedly getting up and snickering continuously. After some conversation, he could not break the blood shield, and had to stop, asking, "What Gu is this?" Guyu laughed smugly, "Let me teach you, this is my personally fused Gu, Blood Curtain Skyflower. Water Curtain Skyflower, a rank 4 Gu, can block rank 5 Gu attacks. This Gu is at rank 5 and has even more powerful defense. Water Curtain Skyflower prevents even its owner from going in and out, but this Blood Curtain Skyflower can let me leave. Junior brother, don't be impatient, you can attack slowly, use all your strength. Just wait till I recover, I will then come out and cut away your dog head, ahahaha." Lord Sky Crane was furious, attacking again, but failed. After he calmed down, he chose to replenish his primeval essence, waiting for the blood shield to lose effect. The Gu masters, seeing the blood shield being impenetrable, were overjoyed, thinking their lives were saved, quickly flattering first Gen Guyu, but only by Ning Bing snorted. First Gen Guyu thus asked for more primeval stones, and everyone quickly contributed what they had. Although first Gen Guyu was chained up, and could not move, his mouth continued to crush primeval stones as he recovered quickly. Sky Crane Lord, seeing this, started shouting, "You morons! Once he recovers his movement, he will kill you all and use your blood to upgrade his aptitude. You are causing your own doom." No one believed him. Hee, using such a low-level tactic to sow distrust, we'll laugh till our teeth drops. Quick, this old thief is telling us not to give, so we need to give even more primeval stones. Everything is depending on Lord Ancestor. Chapter 197, Changing Fate. Large numbers of primeval stones continued to be absorbed by first Gen Guyu, as he chewed and crushed them. Bai Ning Bing watched coldly. But Fang Yuan moved, he did not observe but had a different choice than before. First Gen Ancestor, the situation is dire, I have the Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus to offer. He was filled with sincerity as he walked up quickly, a look of helplessness but determination. Guyu laughed heartily, "Very good, as expected of my descendant. Such filial piety, as your ancestor, I am very happy." He had long wanted the Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus, and once sent 2 Bladewing Blood Bat groups to chase after Fang Yuan, but Fang Yuan escaped quickly and didn't give him the chance. However, right now he had no suspicions. Firstly, he did not fall out with Fang Yuan yet, and earlier he had lied that he was protecting Fang Yuan when he dispatched the Bladewing Blood Bat group. Secondly, Fang Yuan had taken the initiative to grab onto the white eyebrows and help the first Gen Guyu in the primeval essence expenditure, causing the wavering people to make up their minds. Such a loyal performance, first Gen Guyu still remembered it vividly. Lastly, under such circumstances, Fang Yuan could only place his hopes on first Gen Guyu. Only then could he defeat Lord Sky Crane and protect his life. First Gen Guyu did not believe that Fang Yuan would ruin his own survival chances and attack him. Thus, when Fang Yuan got closer, first Gen Guyu laughed continuously, "With the Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus, my chances of victory is higher by 20%. All of you move away, and let him in." Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus? Outside the blood barrier, Lord Sky Crane was stunned and quickly shouted, you mustn't do it. Under everyone's gazes, Fang Yuan got to First Gen Gu Yu's side. First Gen Ancestor. I have thought it through. It was you who created the village, it was because of you that all of us descendants exist. Back in the day, you made such a great contribution to the village. Today, you even led our clan towards brilliance. The heavenly essence treasure lotus should be used by you, great ancestor. He was full of admiration, his tone excited and nervous. First Gen Guyu nodded continuously, thinking, this lad is good with words. Too bad I still have to kill him later and retrieve his blood. But at this time, Fang Yuan lowered his back, striking. He grabbed First Gen Guyu, using the strength in his waist to turn his body and moved both arms. He opened his mouth and growled, using the strength of 2 boars, expending all his energy to throw. Swish! First Gen Guyu was thrown out of the blood barrier by him. Dead silence. At this time, it was as if time stopped. The outside winds blew relentlessly. First Gen Guyu was smashed onto the ground, his red hair flying around in the winds as he stared blankly, having unable to react to what had just happened. In front of him, less than 10 steps away was Lord Sky Crane. This old man was still furious and anxious over Fang Yuan contributing the heavenly essence treasure lotus. He did not expect in the least that in the very next moment, such a drastic change would occur. He was stunned too, staring blankly at First Gen Guyu. First Gen Guyu was his mortal enemy, but at this point Lord Sky Crane was stunned, like he was still dreaming, not moving at all. In the blood barrier, everyone stood like a statue, silent and unmoving. Some people opened their mouths, so large that a fist could fit in it. Some stared with wide-opened eyes, almost bulging out. Even Bai Ningbing lost his composure, staring at Fang Yuan in astonishment. Only when half a bamboo building collapsed within the blood barrier did everyone jolt awake all of a sudden. Wah, what the fuck? Someone swore. Fang Yuan, what dumb shit did you do? Someone pointed at Fang Yuan, his entire body shivering. First Gen Ancestor. Someone attempted to pull First Gen Guyu back, but was blocked by the blood curtain Skyflower. Despicable thief. Lying to your ancestor, I will tear you to shreds. First Gen Guyu finally reacted, lying on the ground screaming. Ha ha ha. Amidst the frightened individuals, someone laughed. It was none other than Bai Ningbing. He laughed till his tears came out, giving a thumbs up to Fang Yuan, interesting, truly spectacular. Fang Yuan, are you crazy? Fang Yuan, you harmed the First Gen Ancestor, you plot even against the ancestor, are you still human? Wah, Fang Yuan must have been bought over by that white-hair old man. You spy, you traitor. The surrounding people pointed at him in rage, but Fang Yuan lightly laughed, I am a rank 3 peak stage, who dares to kill me? Who can kill me? At this point, within the blood barrier, there were few rank 3 Gu masters. They had little primeval essence left due to the fight earlier, and they even gave up their primeval stones and could not get replenishments. As for the others, they were mortals or rank 1 or 2 Gu masters. Without the First Gen Guyu, within this blood barrier, Fang Yuan really was unstoppable. He. Fang Yuan laughed, bending down and picking up the 2 Gu worms. His left hand carried the blood skull Gu, and his right hand carried the yin-yang rotation Gu. These 2 were owned by First Gen Guyu, but right now they had a thin layer of yellow light, sealed by the problem nipped in the bud Gu, unable to sense First Gen Guyu's desperate calls. But this seal was an obstacle to Fang Yuan as well. He wanted to break the seal and refine the 2 Gu worms. Forcefully breaking the seal however, will only cause these 2 Gu to be destroyed. This was different from the blood curtain skyflower goo, as the blood curtain skyflower goo had to be destroyed to be used. By breaking the seal, it was the same as using it. But Fang Yuan was not anxious. He knew what would happen next. Both the demon suppression iron chain goo and problem nipped in the bud goo would be corrupted by the blood frenzy goo, turn into blood water and die. Haha, my good senior brother, to think you have this day. Hand over your life. Lord Sky Crane howled, rushing into the sky and attacking towards First Gen Guyu. First Gen Guyu was suppressed by the demon suppressing chains and could not move, thus he was a target board and could only take the hits. He scolded furiously, howling and struggling. Suddenly the iron chains turned into a puddle of blood water, allowing him to regain his freedom, and he hurriedly flew into the air, crashing against the blood barrier. With a loud bang, unquestionably, he was blocked by the blood barrier. This blood curtain skyflower was refined by him, and it was his greatest invention. It had superb defense, but once used it cannot be moved nor turned off. For him, he could only exit and not enter. Little rascal, you will die a painful death. First Gen Guyu's grievance and rage towards Fang Yuan was greater than anything, rising like a tsunami. Lord Sky Crane naturally chased him, laughing non-stop. First Gen Guyu could only give up on the blood barrier and resist the Lord Sky Crane. He had eaten large amounts of primeval essence earlier, thus he had ample primeval essence. Even though he had the lower hand, he could stabilize his situation. First Gen Ancestor, good luck. Lord First Gen, we are cheering for you. Ancestor, you are our only hope. The battle between two rank 5 attracted everyone's attention. Fang Yuan, however, retracted his gaze and looked at Bai Ningbing. This situation was like two tigers competing, while Fang Yuan was a rabbit. Both the Lord Sky Crane and First Gen Guyu were crafty old foxes. To wait for the two to injure each other and benefit Fang Yuan, such a chance was slim. No one was stupid, they would not let the battle adrenaline get to their head. Moreover, this blood barrier could only protect them for a while. Once the time is up, everyone inside including him would face the slaughter of Lord Sky Crane and First Gen Guyu. He had already rebirthed once, thus the spring-autumn cicada had fallen into a weak state again, unable to be used. Right now, he could only try to get as strong as possible, exerting the greatest effort to fight for a chance to survive. Fang Yuan already had a plan. But in this plan, there was a person who played a crucial role. That person is Bai Ningbing. The Northern Dark Ice Soul physique self-detonation would greatly affect the battlefield. Especially when the two rank 5s were fighting outside of the barrier. But how was he going to convince Bai Ningbing? Fang Yuan looked at Bai Ningbing, and Bai Ningbing sensed it, turning back to look at Fang Yuan. Among the people, they stared at each other. Fang Yuan in his black robe, with black hair and eyes, revealed a devilish smile as his lips curled. I have a way to resolve the 10 extreme aptitudes, and allow you to return to life. He said. Bai Ningbing's body shuddered, he obviously wanted to live. What method? However, Fang Yuan's words changed. But this method does not have much chance of success, it is highly probable to fail. Yet this made Bai Ningbing even more convinced. Next Fang Yuan said his third sentence, but I think even if we fail, it will allow your final moments to be as spectacular as ever. Bai Ningbing's was moved. Fang Yuan used 3 sentences and targeted his heart's innermost desires, convincing him. He was also smart, and after thinking, he asked directly, then what do I need to do? Fang Yuan's smile disappeared. At the same time, the problem nipped in the bud goo turned into a puddle of blood water. Blood skull goo and yin yang rotation goo seal vanished and were about to fly away, but Fang Yuan grabbed onto them. He used the spring-autumn cicada's aura. These 3 Gu were merely rank 4, they were immediately tamed. Fong Yuan injected his primeval essence and refined them, turning them into his. What? Fuck. Outside the blood barrier, first Gen Gu Yu's head hurt as he lost the connection with the blood skull Gu and yin-yang rotation Gu. He was beyond shocked, losing his bearing and rushing towards the blood barrier. How can this be? How could you refine my 3 Gu worms so quickly? First Gen Gu Yu cried out sadly, attacking the blood barrier like a crazed man. Fong Yuan stole food from a tiger's mouth. By taking the blood skull Gu and yin-yang rotation Gu, it was a fatal blow to the first gen. Everyone was shocked, taking a step back. First Gen Gu Yu was like a fierce beast trapped in despair, his eyes starting to burn with fire. But quickly, Lord Sky Crane's attack came. I want you to die, I want you to die. First Gen Gu Yu went frantic, attacking without defending, exerting all his anger on Lord Sky Crane. Lord Sky Crane was taken aback as he received some damaging blows. The two fought it out again, as the battle slowly reached its climax. Fong Yuan laughed loudly, saying to Bai Ningbing, "Come, kill them all with me." Before he finished, he acted. As the razors on the chainsaw golden centipede moved, he slashed a Gu master nearby into half. Blood Skull Gu. Soon after, Fong Yuan activated the Blood Skull Gu, absorbing the blood. Chapter 198, Ruthless in Murdering People, Cruelty Exercised to Profit from Disaster. Fong Yuan, what are you doing? Quickly stop, the enemy is before us, how can we fight among ourselves? Stop now, otherwise, ugh. Everyone was shocked. Fong Yuan was ruthless, killing another clansman. I am only killing Guyu clan people, outsiders fuck off. Otherwise I'll kill you as well. Fong Yuan screamed. Everyone was stunned, retreating steps away, not expecting Fong Yuan to be so insane. Fong Yuan has lost it. He's lost his logic, attack together. Indeed, if this goes on, even before the first ancestor defeats the enemy, we'd have been slaughtered by Fong Yuan already. It was like Fong Yuan stabbed a beehive, causing everyone to stir, but no one dared to attack, most could only shout and encourage others to fight. Ha ha ha, interesting. Bai Ningbing laughed loudly, suddenly attacking and killing someone beside him. Lord Bai Ningbing, you. The dying person was a Bai clansman. Oh no, Lord Bai Ningbing lost it too. Everyone shouted. Fong Yuan's gaze concentrated, looking at Bai Ningbing, not expecting him to change so drastically. Bai Ningbing laughed maniacally, since you can kill your own clansmen, I can't lose to you. Sigh, since too many deaths have occurred, Bai clan's future is ruined already, we can no longer be a village. The clan leader I'm indebted to is dead too, I might as well kill them now, and enjoy the fun. He, that's great, Fong Yuan laughed heartily, his body moving quickly, starting his slaughter. Since these clansmen were going to die anyway, they might as well die at Fong Yuan's hands, contributing to his aptitude growth instead of first Gen Gu Yu. These people in the blood barrier, how could they be a match for Fong Yuan and Bai Ningbing together? Especially when Bai Ningbing, who was nearing death, was much stronger and killed even more people than Fong Yuan. Fong Yuan took the last hit and extracted their blood. After killing 100 people, the blood skull Gu reached its limit, and the crystal skull started to turn blood red. Fong Yuan laughed heartily, activating the blood skull Gu, raising it over his head. The teeth opened, shooting out a fragrant blood stream, drenching Fong Yuan from head to toe. Fong Yuan enjoyed the discomfort and breathed in deeply, living in the moment. His black robe and hair together with his bloodbath body, made him look like a demon straight out of hell. The surrounding people upon seeing him, were all scared and cried out in fear. My aptitude really increased. Fang Yuan's aptitude was only 44% C grade originally, but after the man-beast life burial Gu, it dropped to 43%. Right now, standing under the bloodstream as it gushed into his aperture, his aptitude rose by 10%, going to 53%. Indeed a great treasure, no wonder first Gen Guyu treated it like his life. Fang Yuan opened his eyes, nodding in satisfaction, starting another round of slaughter. The two caused much bloodshed within the blood barrier. This was a large slaughterhouse. Fang Yuan, you mad and crazy monster. Guyu Mo Yen rushed up. Fang Yuan dodged her attack and raised his chainsaw golden centipede before throwing it down. The young girl was split in half. Fang Yuan, let us go please, we're your uncle and aunt. Guyu Dong too and his wife kneeled down and begged. Fang Yuan laughed coldly, his left hand waving, and a blood-colored moonblade shot out, beheading the two. Blood Skull Gu absorbed the Guyu clansman blood, turning into a thick blood stream, pouring into Fang Yuan. What a pleasure! Fang Yuan closed his eyes, breathing in deeply, only to feel a warm feeling traveling through his body and causing his mind to become sharper, like he had been reborn. Aptitude rose again, becoming 63%. A Gu master's aptitude, 40 to 59% was C grade, 60 to 79% was B grade, and 80% and above was A grade. Fang Yuan had officially left C grade and become a B grade talent. But, my cultivation dropped. Fang Yuan opened his eyes, staring intently. Fang Yuan's aptitude rose to B grade, but his cultivation dropped from rank 3 to rank 2. Strange. First Gen Guyu evidently retained his cultivation level as his aptitude rose, so why was it that when it came to Fang Yuan, such a thing happened? This problem should be due to the stone aperture Gu. Fang Yuan sighed in his heart. Fang Yuan had used the stone aperture Gu to squeeze out all his potential, causing his cultivation to rise to rank 3 peak stage. But this blood skull Gu injected the quality blood stream into him, raising the aperture's potential and raising his aptitude. Undeniably, these two Gu clashed in nature. But blood skull Gu was rank 4, while stone aperture Gu was rank 3. The blood skull Gu ruled over the stone aperture Gu, causing Fang Yuan's aperture to turn from stone back to light. However, the cultivation increase that the stone aperture brought was also disappearing, and even reducing his cultivation in the process. This change was something Fang Yuan did not expect in such a short time. But Bai Ningbing was getting stronger, he killed everywhere he went. Thus, Fang Yuan was able to keep his strength and stop attacking, only collecting the bloodline. First Gen Guyu, who was outside the blood barrier, saw the people getting slaughtered and flew into a rage, screaming but to no avail. He spread his bloodline, waiting for hundreds of years. It was all for this moment, killing his descendants to raise his aptitude. After planning for so long, in the end, someone else benefited from it. This lad, so young yet so ruthless, even more demonic than his ancestor. Lord Sky Crane, seeing this, was slightly shocked too. The slaughter continued, until 6 hours later. Fang Yuan's cultivation dropped to rank 1 initial stage, but his aperture returned to being a light wall, able to recover primeval essence on his own. He was bathed in blood over 10 times, and towards the last few times, the effect weakened. The first few raised his aptitude by 10%, but the percentage continued to drop with each try. But his aptitude had increased from the C grade 43% to over 90%. 90%, a grade aptitude. A grade aptitude. 500 years of my previous life, I only managed to raise my aptitude from C to B about 200 years later through pure luck. To think that this time, I can benefit from a disaster and rise to a grade. Fang Yuan clenched his fist, secretly excited. Bai Ningbing stopped his killing, walking over. Next, what do we do? In the blood barrier, only the two of them were left. The others, whether it was Gu Master or mortal, were all killed. Outside the blood barrier, no one was spared from the aftermath of the two rank 5 experts battle. In the entire area, there was only the two inside the barrier, and the two outside. Fang Yuan looked outside, saying casually, next, we wait for first Gen Guyu to run into defeat, and the blood curtain Skyflower to vanish. And then? Bai Ningbing pursued. Then? Fang Yuan turned around and looked at Bai Ningbing, then he smiled, then you can go and die. Bai Ningbing was stunned. Oh. What do you mean? Immediately, his eyes squinted into a line as his blue irises had a dangerous killing intent. The northern dark ice soul physique self-detonation is extremely strong. Even though your cultivation is weak, and the chances are not high, it should be able to hurt rank 5 experts. After detonating, are you able to control the direction of the snow and frost? Fang Yuan laughed. How would I know? Bai Ningbing's lips twitched. I've never self-detonated before. I know you can. Fang Yuan laughed heartily, patting his chest. Unknowingly, the image of Bai Ningbing self-detonating previously appeared in his mind. And that line, live for me, and witness the brilliance of this world. I will stay by your side. After you detonate, and when the time is ripe, I will save your life and cause you to resurrect, Fang Yuan continued. What if you can't? He. Fang Yuan laughed plainly, then you need to bet. When you detonate, I will be by your side. If you suspect my sincerity, you can send the ice storm to kill me. You must have noticed already. That's right, my cultivation is already rank 1 initial stage. By then, I will have no way to survive. But if you believe me, then I could be lying too. Eventually I will not resurrect you, because I have no way to do so. Thus, you need to gamble, whatever choice you make, not just what you are thinking, but also what you are considering in the moment before you die. Bai Ningbing was solemn. Fang Yuan's words was telling him to gamble away. But actually, wasn't Fang Yuan betting too? He was using his own life as the wager, fully dependent on Bai Ningbing's thoughts. He. So exciting. So very exciting. Then I shall bet on it, haha. A moment later, Bai Ningbing raised his head, laughing loudly. Fang Yuan did not care about him, but concentrated on the battle outside the blood barrier. As expected, first Gen Guyu had the lower hand, suppressed by Lord Sky Crane. Although he replenished his primeval essence, he could not replenish it, so under a sustained battle, how could he compete with Lord Sky Crane? Moreover, Lord Sky Crane was clear of his methods, and he would not allow first Gen Guyu to take back any advantage. I am so fucking furious. A moment later, first Gen Guyu cried out, little thief, you destroyed my 1,000-year plan, I will spare you today. Someday, I will kill the hell out of you to appease my anger. Throwing this angry statement, first Gen Guyu flapped his wings and escaped the battlefield, flying towards the skies. Don't think of leaving. Lord Sky Crane quickly turned into a flash of light, chasing relentlessly. Without their intense battle, this battlefield became quiet instantly. This was originally the best time to leave, but the Blood Veil Aurora became a huge obstacle. 4 hours later, the blood barrier was thinning, and was about to vanish. But at this time, a white light flew over, turning into the Lord Sky Crane. His body was full of injuries. A wound stretched from his left shoulder to his waist, so deep that his bones could be seen, overflowing with purple poisonous red blood. But his face was extremely uplifted, showing the happiness of getting his long-awaited revenge. His right hand held a skull, a blood-covered face. It was First Gen Guyu. He actually managed to kill First Gen Guyu. Bai Ningbing showed astonishment. Fang Yuan laughed instead. It seems this old fellow hates First Gen Guyu to the core. To kill the First Gen, he definitely paid a huge price. While they were speaking, the blood barrier vanished, and there were no longer any obstacles between the two. Little thief, quickly hand over the 2 Gu worms. I am still in a good mood now, I might spare your lives. Otherwise, when the blood barrier vanishes, you will all die without a resting place. Lord Sky Crane flew into the sky, looking down and laughing loudly. Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing looked at each other before laughing lightly, not speaking. Lord Sky Crane flew into a rage. Good lad, refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit, you deserve to get killed. Before he finished his words, he turned into a white light and assaulted. Bai Ningbing laughed grandly, taking a huge step in front. I was waiting for you. Saying so, his body lost all color, turning into an ice statue. Cold winds blew, and as winds turned into a hurricane, frost and ice covered the sky and the infinite ice river appeared. This is. Lord Sky Crane did not expect it in the least that such a development would occur, causing him to be unprepared against Bai Ningbing's attack, and was sealed into the ice. Chapter 199, Walking Towards Their Own Destiny. Boom! Boom! The ice glacier shook intensely as Lord Sky Crane carried out his attacks. He was about to break out of the ice layer in just a few seconds. We can't let this old geezer break free. Fang Yuan shouted. Bai Ningbing couldn't speak anymore. After Fang Yuan's shout, he resolutely self-exploded one of his arm, turning it into vast amounts of frost wind. The wind swept through everything, the glacier spread and the ice layer rapidly thickened by 100 feet. Lord Sky Crane roared within the ice and started attacking in a frenzy. Bai Ningbing exploded his other arm. More ice condensed and the glacier repeatedly pressed down on Lord Sky Crane, suppressing him every time he tried to break through. Under Bai Ningbing's meticulous control, the ice moved like an army, firmly entrapping Lord Sky Crane. Lord Sky Crane may be a rank 5 Gu master, but after killing Guyu first head, he was thoroughly spent. He attacked again and again, but couldn't break out in the end. It is actually Northern Dark Ice Soul physique. But if you want to kill me with just this, you can keep on dreaming. He suddenly realized and immediately activated life-retaining Jade Burial Gu. Green jade light came into being and covered his body. Then the rays of light turned from virtual to material, changing into a transparent jade coffin with Lord Sky Crane inside it. This jade coffin was abnormally hard. Even after trying multiple times, Bai Ningbing was not able to put even a scratch on it. In the end, he could only add more ice layers around the jade coffin, forming an ice peak that was hundreds of feet high. Fang Yuan had watched all this from the sidelines. Worthy of being a 10 extreme physique. He was impressed even though this was his second time seeing it. Fang Yuan was standing right beside Bai Ningbing. Right now, Bai Ningbing had destroyed his 2 arms and was turning into an ice sculpture. Even his appearance was becoming indistinct as the ice slowly covered him. Both his appearance and his consciousness were slowly dissipating. Once his consciousness fades, he would be completely dead. As the ice layer started to spread towards himself, Fang Yuan was clear on what he had to do. It is impossible to escape by myself. I will be sealed and frozen to death by the glacier sooner or later. It's time. Immediately, he took out a pair of Gu worms from his aperture. 1 black Gu and 1 white Gu were revolving around each other in an orbit, forming a light sphere of Taiji diagram. This was the yin-yang rotation Gu. Go! Fang Yuan willed it, the black goo immediately flew out and merged into Bai Ningbing's ice sculpture. Fang Yuan may just be a rank 1 right now, but his aperture still contained large amounts of rank 3 snow silver primeval essence which he almost used up in activating this goo. In the instance when the black goo went into the ice sculpture, black light burst out everywhere, Xianxia gathered from all around and formed into an energy vortex in the air. A completely new life force came into being within the ice sculpture, and started growing vigorously. The dazzling black light dissipated, the ice sculpture cracked and broke into pieces, which then flew scattered to the surroundings. A white gown, silver hair, intact arms, picturesque appearance with lovely blush on the cheeks, Bai Ningbing broke free of the ice and came out. The blizzard came to a sudden stop and the cold air also completely dispersed. The ice layer stopped a few inches from Fang Yuan. He had lived through this near-death experience. I am really alive. Bai Ningbing was shocked. He looked at his pretty jade-like hands and then felt his whole body, his disbelief changed to ecstasy. Ha ha ha. Fang Yuan laughed brightly. I used the Yin Gu of Yin Yang rotation Gu on you. This Gu can change Yang to Yin and give you a complete transformation. It is a rank 4 healing Gu and has the effect of bringing the dead to life. It has a weak point though, and that is, the Gu Master's aptitude will be lowered by 10% once it is used. Bai Ningbing possessed the 10 extreme physique which was a 100% aptitude. Now, his aptitude was lowered by 10%, and was equal to Fang Yuan's 90% aptitude. This news, to others, might have been grievous, but to Bai Ningbing, it was joyous news. This feels great. My aptitude has been lowered, I no longer have the Northern Dark Ice Soul physique. Huh, what does it matter if I only have 90%? Bai Ningbing started laughing loudly. Fang Yuan, however, shook his head. It is very difficult to change the 10 extreme physiques. Although this method lowered your aptitude, as you cultivate in the future, your aptitude will also recover until the day it turns into Northern Dark Ice Soul physique again. When that day comes, you will need to use this Yang Gu, it will turn you around again and lower your aptitude by 10%. Upon saying this, Fang Yuan put back the Yang Gu into his aperture in front of Bai Ningbing's dead straight gaze. Yin Yang rotation Gu all come in pairs, you have already used that Yin Gu, so only the Yang Gu on me will have any effect on you. Don't even think of stealing it, I have already refined this Yang Gu, I can easily order it to self-destroy with just a thought, Fang Yuan explained. He only had rank 1 cultivation now, but Bai Ningbing was still a rank 3 Gu master, naturally he needed some ways to stop Bai Ningbing from taking actions against him. I see, Fang Yuan, you really planned it all. Bai Ningbing heaved a long sigh, what do you want from me for that Yang Gu? Ha ha ha. Fang Yuan laughed for a good while then turned serious, Qingmao Mountain has already turned into a desolate ice mountain. The 3 great clans along with countless living beings have all been frozen and will die within 3 to 5 days. Such a scene will definitely attract the attention and investigation of many forces. Moreover, that old man isn't dead and has sealed himself within the jade coffin, waiting to break out. We can't stay in Qingmao Mountain anymore, we need to leave. But look at me, I only have rank 1 cultivation now, I can't even take out my Gu worms, much less leave by myself. Hence, I need to rely on your strength. This world is so big, so wondrous, and Qingmao Mountain is only a very small part of it. Follow me as I roam this land, and witness the wonders of the world. It was like this. You really planned out everything. Humph. Bai Ningbing grinded his teeth. He was really happy but there was also some resignation now. However, as it turns out, Fang Yuan's proposal moved him. I can agree to you but I need to make one thing clear. What? Fang Yuan asked. It is not me who is following you, but you who is following me as I roam the lands. Bai Ningbing's red lips slightly raised with an arrogant smile. Ha ha ha. Fong Yuan laughed heartily. Then, where are we going next? What do you have in mind? Bai Ningbing asked. Bai Gu Mountain. Fong Yuan answered in between his laughters. What's so funny? Bai Ningbing was truly puzzled. Fong Yuan laughed until his tears flowed. You still haven't discovered anything wrong. What is there that's wrong? Bai Ningbing raised his dark eyebrows. Suddenly, his face turned extremely wonderful. Surprise, fear, puzzled, panic, shock, anger, all these expressions intertwined in her face. She looked at her round and full chest, and cried out with a loud voice, how did I become a woman? The voice resounded throughout the Qing Mao Mountain, shaking the snow. Of course it would be like that. Yin Yang rotation Gu, Yin Gu is used in male body, to turn Yang into Yin, and become a woman. Likewise, Yang Gu is used in female body, to turn Yin to Yang, and become a man. Yin Yang rotation, rotating Yin and Yang, what do you think it means? Fong Yuan spoke like it was what it should be. What the fuck? Bai Ningbing looked at Fong Yuan with a furious gaze and cursed. With this, she must now get hold of that soul Yang Gu. Brother Bai, calm yourself, being able to live is the greatest fortune, Fong Yuan consoled her. Fortune my ass, how about you try being a woman? Bai Ningbing's furious growl resounded within the snow-covered mountain and glaciers. 2 days later. The sun hung high in the sky, the ice was melting down and a stream of clear water flowed through the ice mountain. Crackle. The silence of the surroundings was broken by the cracking of ice. A jade light burst out from within the ice and hovered in the air, turning into a jade coffin. The jade coffin exploded, and Lord Sky Crane gave a long cry upon regaining his freedom and seeing the daylight again. This life-retaining jade burial Gu was a rank 5 Gu and was very mysterious. As long as the Gu master had one breath of life in him, it could suspend his life and delay the injuries. Not only this, but the jade coffin it formed was extremely strong and could even be considered a defensive weapon. Goddamn thief! He cursed with a pained voice. Right now, he was both furious and impatient. Even after killing his lifetime enemy, the first Gen Guyu, he couldn't get the True Blood Sea inheritance. How was he going to answer his teacher when he returned? According to his memories, the ice layer where Fong Yuan was supposed to be was already cut open. If only he didn't get far. He patrolled the surroundings hoping for a lucky break. He used his recon Gu and discovered many life forces hanging on to their lives in the depths of the ice layers. Living beings were tenacious and this tenacity could often bring about miracles. It had only been 2 days since this glacier covered these life forms, which was not enough to lead to their complete deaths. Found him. To think he was actually hiding here, the most dangerous area is the safest place, right? This guy is really crafty. Lord Sky Crane's whole body jolted and became indescribably happy upon this discovery. He rushed into the ice layer and soon fished out an ice chunk. Within the ice chunk, Fang Zheng's whole body was covered with a layer of moonlight from the moon raiment Gu. He was already at the edge of death's door. Lord Sky Crane could swear he would never forget Fong Yuan's appearance in this life. However, he was a rank 5 expert and after closely looking at Fang Zheng, he was immediately disappointed. This person isn't him, only their appearances are similar. Sigh. He heaved a deep sigh before suddenly becoming stupefied. Wait a second, their appearances are so similar which means they are extremely likely to be twins. If so, then he is closely related to that little thief. Lord Sky Crane's dim old eyes suddenly burst out with a sharp gaze. With a close relative on him, he could refine the kinship bloodworm. It was because of this rank 5 kinship bloodworm that he was able to locate the first Gen Guyu among this vast world and its diverse life forms. I haven't completely failed teacher's assignment. There is still some hope. This kid is my only hope. I must save him. Feng Zheng slowly opened his exhausted and heavy eyes. Where is this? His eyes were still hazy and he could only see a blurry figure before him. At the same time, his whole body felt weak, along with an intense headache. The last thing he recalled was the 3 clans competition, where ironbeak flying cranes covered the sky and everyone around him had fled. He had activated the Moon Raiment Gu and resisted against the flying crane's attacks. As the battle continued, a flying crane broke through his barrier and pecked fiercely at his forehead. He had immediately lost consciousness, tumbling down the cliff. You are the elder standing on the crane. As he became clear on the identity of the person before him, Feng Zheng struggled to get up in shock, but fell down again before he could completely stand up. Kid, you are still thinking of escaping in front of me, Lord Sky Crane. Lord Sky Crane sneered. He sized up Feng Zheng once and said, you could say that I am even your lifesaver. If not for me, you would have already frozen to death. I advise you to not move around randomly, don't blame me if you fall down. Feng Zheng looked beside him and immediately got a great shock. There were clouds moving all around him, and he was standing on the back of an enormous crane as it flew in the sky. You, who the hell are you? Where are you taking me to? Feng Zheng cried out in alarm. I am Lord Sky Crane, and we are heading to the Middle Continent. Middle Continent? Feng Zheng shouted in shock. Chapter 200, The Raft Overturns Along the Yellow Dragon River. Book 2, The Demon Leaves the Mountain. The Yellow Dragon River is the 3rd river in the southern border. It is over 8,000 kilometers. It starts from Mount Huanghua, and passes through mountains and hills like Mount Xianming, Mount Guibei, Mount Qingmao, Mount Baigu and Mount Lei Ci before finally flowing into the ocean. If the whole southern border was seen through a bird's eye view, one could see the Yellow Dragon River forming a zigzag shape as it ran through over half of the southern border. Several waves roared as they turned over, the violent waves rolling in an imposing manner along the river. It bore through the crack between the shores, and fog was raised up into the blue sky. The Yellow Dragon River flowed rapidly and unceasingly. Many creatures lived in the river, fishes, turtles, snakes, clams and other life forms. At this moment, there was a bamboo raft bobbing up and down with the waves. This green raft looked quite battered and seemed to be in need of repair. There was a simple and crude mast in the middle with a shabby white sail hanging on it. A pile of goods were put around the mast to stabilize the center of the raft. The bamboo were tied with hemp ropes and there were many loops around some areas. They were clearly hurriedly done as the raft sailed through the river. The bamboo raft flowed with the currents of the river, and every time the waves crashed onto it, the raft gave out a creaking noise which was far from reassuring. This bamboo raft which looked like it could break apart at any moment was carrying 2 youngsters. One had an ordinary face with black pupils and black hair, wearing a black gown, another was a woman with the looks of an immortal fairy, blue pupils and silver hair, wearing a white gown. They were Feng Yuan and Bai Ningbing. After the battle at Qingmao Mountain, Bai Ningbing self-exploding his northern dark ice soul physique and sealed Lord Sky Crane for the moment, they used all their strength to break out of the ice, then cut off some Qingmao bamboos to make this raft before immediately hitting the road to flee. Feng Yuan's 1,000-li earth wolf spider was already dead, and ever since Bai Ningbing's white form immortal snake had flown out on its own, there had been no news from it. With no transportation Gu worms, the 2 would definitely be caught by Lord Sky Crane if they were to move on land as their speed would be too slow. Thus, Feng Yuan could only think of this method. Many tributaries of Yellow Dragon River flowed through Qingmao Mountain. Previously, the rank 5 river swallowing toad had flowed with the main course of Yellow Dragon River and accidentally flowed to the foot of the Qing Mao Mountain. The bamboo raft flowed through one of the tributaries to the main river course, and as it flowed with the river, its speed was naturally extremely fast. "It has been 5 days, it doesn't look like that old guy will come," Fang Yuan mumbled as he stood on the bamboo raft and took a glance behind him. The bamboo raft's speed could definitely not match the Ironbeak Flying Crane King. But the Ironbeak Flying Crane King would definitely need to rest and couldn't compare with the bamboo raft which continuously flowed with the river. And as more time went by, Fang Yuan became more assured. Moreover, Fang Yuan recalled that Lord Sky Crane had returned alone after killing the Guyu first head. The Ironbeak Flying Crane King was likely to be already dead. The raging waves of the river bombarded their ears. Bai Ningbing took a glance at Fang Yuan. She might not have understood the details in his words, but knew what he meant. She laughed loudly. "What are you so worried for? If that old geezer chases us, we will just fight to death. Fighting on this Yellow Dragon River will be extremely spectacular. Well, the thing is that if we die here, we will end up in the stomachs of some fishes." "Huh, that sounds interesting too." Fang Yuan ignored her, instead gazing towards the distance. With 5 days of sailing, they were almost at the Baigu Mountain. According to his memories, there was a secret inheritance hidden in Baigu Mountain. The inheritance was arranged by a rank 4 Gu master of the righteous path, for someone fated to it. I haven't personally seen this inheritance in the Baigu Mountain, and have only heard about it. But it was rumored that this inheritance had some obstacles which required 2 people to coordinate to pass through. When Fang Yuan thought of this, he gave a casual glance towards Bai Ningbing. Although they were traveling together, it was only due to the situation and the pressure of a powerful enemy. He himself was only at rank 1 initial stage and absolutely needed help to roam outside. But with Bai Ningbing turning into a woman, he had the greatest hold on her in the Yanggu, giving her no choice but to compromise. After entering the Baigu Mountain, could they really coordinate with one mind? It was a big question mark. Snap! Suddenly, a muffled sound was heard. "Not good, the rope has come off." This sound was very familiar to Bai Ningbing as she immediately shouted. The force of the river flow was fierce, and in these 5 days, who knows how many times the hemp rope binding the raft had rotted out due to it. Fortunately, Fang Yuan had made enough preparations before they had set out. "Quick, get the hemp rope, I will hold it till then." Fang Yuan immediately crouched down and used his hands to hold the areas where the rope had come loose, preventing the situation from getting messed up. The river flowed fast and violently. It would take a lot of strength to hold the bamboo raft. Bai Ningbing wasn't qualified for this, only Fang Yuan who had the strength of 2 boars was. Luckily, this situation had occurred multiple times before and Bai Ningbing had become more experienced in dealing with this. She quickly went to get the hemp rope tied around the simple and crude mast in the center of the boat. "Here, take it." She rushed over and handed the hemp rope. Fang Yuan agilely took it and rapidly coiled it around the loose areas with sweat starting to drip off his head as he concentrated on the task. After coiling the hemp rope around the loose area several times, the raft finally stabilized. This raft has already suffered a lot of damage. From the looks of it, it can only continue on for a day. We need to reach the shore in this duration. Fang Yuan heaved a sigh. Yellow Dragon River was not safe at all. Who knew how many dangers were hidden within this raging river? If the bamboo raft fell apart in the middle of the river, Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing would have no choice but to go with the river, with no way of telling if they would survive. Ta! There was a soft muffled sound. What was that sound? Fang Yuan immediately furrowed his brows. Bai Ningbing listened closely with a doubtful expression. "What sound? I didn't hear anything." Roots grew out from Fang Yuan's ears, and almost immediately he heard the continuous tat-ata sounds. Along with the sounds, the bamboo raft also started shaking. What is that thing attacking the bamboo raft from the river? Bai Ningbing cried out in surprise. A black ray flew out from beside the bamboo raft and brushed past Bai Ningbing. This black shadow was too fast and couldn't be seen clearly. Bai Ningbing only felt her ear go cold, with some liquid flowing down her cheeks. She subconsciously wiped it. It was blood. What the hell is this thing? She cursed as she looked up, only seeing a spindle-shaped black fish falling into the river from midair. It is the shuttle swordfish, damn it, we need to pull towards the shore immediately. Fang Yuan shouted before pulling the sail. The shuttle swordfish had a sharp head and tail, whereas its stomach was big, just like a textile shuttle. They only appeared in big rivers or oceans, roaming and hunting in groups of hundreds or thousands. They were carnivorous and would often hunt prey 10 times or even hundreds of times their size. Whoosh! The shuttle swordfishes shot out of the river like black arrows. The bamboo raft shook violently as many of the shuttle swordfishes struck it. Fortunately, Qingmao bamboo was a top-grade bamboo, it was very strong and durable. But as the shuttle swordfishes kept on piercing the bamboo raft from below, the raft looked like it would fall apart at any moment. The sail was adjusted to borrow the force of the wind, thus the raft leaned to a side and sailed quickly towards a riverbank. However, the group of shuttle swordfishes had no intention to give up. They scuttled beneath the river and attacked the raft violently. Crack! A Qingmao bamboo was split open and a shuttle swordfish smashed upon the bamboo raft. Its momentum was already exhausted as it landed beside Bai Ningbing. Its head was like an auger and scales tightly covered its whole body, shining with grim light. Bai Ningbing watched it struggling helplessly. After she had self-exploded, all the goo worms she possessed had been frozen to death, while the yin-yang rotation goo saved her, but it didn't have the ability to resurrect her goo worms. Crack, crack, crack. Following closely, other bamboos on the raft started snapping apart. It was outstanding enough that the bamboo raft could even endure the first wave of attacks. But it couldn't endure the second wave. The bamboo raft was damaged and was starting to sink under the river. Quick, quick, quick! Fang Yuan cursed as he protected the sail. If the sail was lost, the raft would lose the propulsive force. Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing would fall into the river, their deaths being a sure thing. The shuttle swordfishes prepared to charge in for a third wave of attacks. Large numbers of the shuttle swordfishes shot out like arrows, breaking the bamboos and snapping the hemp ropes. The bamboo raft was breaking apart. Sky Canopy Gu. Fang Yuan forcefully activated the rank 3 Gu, immediately causing the primeval essence in his aperture to decrease in a terrifying rate. This was still under the conditions of him having 90% a grade aptitude along with Heavenly Essence Treasure Lotus. A rank 1 initial stage's green bronze primeval essence could hardly meet the requirements for the Sky Canopy Gu. Even if a white light armor took shape, it looked extremely weak and didn't exude the aura of a rank 3 Gu. Bang, bang, bang. A series of dull thuds issued as the shuttle swordfishes struck against the white armor. They were unable to harm Fang Yuan. Bai Ningbing, however, was already injured, and was frantically avoiding the shuttle swordfishes that shot towards the bamboo raft. At the same time, she stood behind Fang Yuan, relying on him to block off majority of the attacks. The situation was very critical. The sail was already covered with holes and the speed of the bamboo raft continued to decrease. There was less than 1/3 of the bamboo raft left, and it was already sinking down with the water surface reaching the ankles of Fang Yuan and Bai Ningbing. Damn it, a rank 5 Gu master couldn't kill me, but I am going to die by this group of measly shuttle swordfishes instead. Bai Ningbing let out a deep sigh. With another wave of attacks, the bamboo raft would definitely sink, and they would surely die after falling into the river. However, the shuttle swordfishes were delaying their attacks, causing Bai Ningbing to hold her breath and watch tightly, seemingly on edge. We have reached the shore, the shuttle swordfishes won't swim in shallow water. Huff. We are safe for the time being. Fang Yuan let out a breath of turbid air. His whole body ached and was on the verge of giving out. He had almost no rest in the past few days, what with needing to control the sail and adjusting the direction of the raft from time to time. It had already taxed his body to the limits. Bai Ningbing also gasped in the cold air, her white gown dyed with blood. There were many injuries on her body, but fortunately she had combat talent, and with full efforts on dodging along with the bamboo raft lowering the charging momentum of the shuttle swordfishes, she suffered only light injuries. Fang Yuan glanced at Bai Ningbing, and shortly after, intense pain traveled through his body. He was also injured, with the bleeding continuing even now. The primeval essence in his aperture had completely dried out within few minutes of using the sky canopy Gu. Without its protection, his flesh body naturally couldn't resist the shuttle swordfishes. His original plan had been to sail for a day more. However, unexpected events can happen at any moment. Planning could never overtake the changes, and there was still some distance from Baigu Mountain, but Fang Yuan knew they had to pull toward the shore now. The sail was already useless. Fang Yuan had given all his efforts to steer the raft clear from the reefs, stranding towards a beach. The two splashed their way through the water and stepped on the soft beach. They had reached the shore. Bai Ningbing covered her wounds and sat down on her butt. Her face was pale. If this continues, I might die from excessive blood loss. Quick, bring out your healing Gu. Fang Yuan gave a bitter smile. How could he pull a healing Gu out of thin air?